Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open, and of course you can bring up whatever's on your mind. It's up to you. The number is 603-283-6160, or you can just sit there and listen as we talk about stuff that we think is interesting, and I've got a bevy of interesting stories here tonight. We're going to start with the economy, and specifically the difficulties of inflation, which are now at officially record levels for the last 40 years. We'll tell you about that coming up. Plus, of course, I've been continuing to keep an eye on what's happening in Canada with the Freedom Convoy. There was a press conference yesterday that happened. Now, when they do a press conference with the Freedom Convoy, they actually exclude all the old media, like the mainstream media organizations, the newspapers, the TV stations. Nice. Only new media are invited to actually come to, independent journalists and bloggers and things like that.
A good plan. They don't seem to lie as much.
Exactly. They do put the stream out, though. So they do a live stream of it. So that way the big media can still watch
or report on
but
that.
They can't sit there and ask questions or anything like that, which is interesting.
They're probably not reporting on it, though. I don't know. I haven't seen anything.
There's been some reporting on it recently, although, they try to make them out as Nazis and what have you. I wonder if that annoys the Nazis, because the Nazis were forcing people to undergo experimental medical procedures long before it was cool. Right. And now the government is appropriating their culture. Right. The government is forcing people, and to add insult to injury, they're calling people who oppose what Nazis do Nazis. And I'll bet that the Nazis are just pissed.
They're mad about this.
They've got to be annoyed about this.
Well, you certainly can't find them down at the protests, because there's all kinds of people of all shapes, sizes, and colors involved in the Freedom Convoy. It is a diverse group of people from all across Canada and elsewhere. Some people come up from the United States. And, I mean, anyone who's saying that they're white supremacists has obviously not gone down to actually speak to these people, to actually meet them.
That's why I was wondering, has any old media outlet reported on the press conference?
I don't know. I mean, I don't follow all the old media closely, so it's hard to say. I think I did see some of them mention that they were closed out of the press conference. But there's updates, of course, coming out of Canada. And there's just a couple of quick bullet points that I thought were worthy of pointing out. When I was watching this press conference, they talked about the fundraiser a lot. They talked about the GoFundMe and how they reached $10 million in Canadian dollars on the GoFundMe. Then GoFundMe froze the fundraiser and ultimately canceled the fundraiser. What they didn't, or what I didn't learn until I watched this press conference was, remember, you might have heard that they pulled out like $1.5 million prior to reaching the goal of $10 million. So GoFundMe did make a payout to the organizers prior to their goal. Guess what happened to that $1.5 million?
Stolen?
TD Bank stole it.
TD Bank put a freeze on their bank account as soon as that money came into the account. So you think, once GoFundMe releases it, it's all yours. No. They're releasing it to a bank. And then the bank has... Yeah, well, they're not... There's a lot of bad banks. TD's probably just as bad as most of them, but
they've been the worst to me.
Okay, fair enough. Then you've got to jump through the bankers' hoops after that. And apparently they had to call their attorney, and the attorney had to call the bank, and they had to set up some sort of a trust or something in order for the bank to be okay with releasing the money to this trust or whatever. There's some sort of crazy banking hoops that had to be jumped through. But
did they jump through the hoops and get it?
Apparently they did finally get it, but not because it was easy. Or anything like that. So, yeah, first it's GoFundMe, then it's the banks, and then finally maybe you can get the money that you earned.
But the banks work hand in hand with the Federal Reserve and everything to steal money from people.
Or whatever they're called in Canada.
Yeah.
Canadian Bank, Royal Canadian Bank or something like that. I don't know who.
Sure, they steal money too.
Yeah, well, they've got their own fiat currency up there. So, I mean, I don't know what the inflation rate is like in Canada, but I bet it's pretty bad too, just like it is here. which is now 7.5%. The other thing that I saw in the last couple of days out of Ottawa, the protests going on there. Did you see the video of the police stealing firewood?
No.
Stealing firewood?
Yeah. So
I didn't see. I've seen them stealing fuel.
Right. We knew they were going after gasoline. They were targeting people who were walking around the city with gas cans and shaking them down, arresting people with actual gas, apparently. And then, of course, there were a bunch of people walking around with empty or gas cans full of water just to troll the cops.
Or all with the same hat and things like that so they couldn't be tracked.
Which is pretty entertaining to watch, the videos. They've literally got like little kids walking around with these Jerry gas cans in the streets, which is hilarious. Yeah. And but now apparently they're targeting firewood as well. I guess because they just want to freeze these guys out, essentially, just make it so uncomfortable to be there. And I don't know where this was, but we know they've got like some sort of outskirts facilities where they've taken to parking lots and they've set up in parking lots. So there's the protests that are going on right across from Parliament. That's sort of the main area, but then there's also other areas that are on the outskirts where a bunch of trucks are there, and essentially they're just camped out there. So I don't know if they were targeting something that was sort of internal where it was at the Parliament, or if it was elsewhere, because they seem to have been picking off on the outskirts more so than targeting the inner portion of the actual protests, just because there aren't as many people out there.
And my understanding is the police were actually required to return the gasoline or the diesel fuel that they stole. These trucks run on diesel, and they returned it watered.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So
what'll that do to an engine if you put that?
Well, it'll damage the engine. Yeah. You have to get the engine fixed. Luckily, the truckers tested it. Apparently,
well, I wonder if they can, do anything about that, because imagine if the cops stole some money from you. It was determined in court they had to return the money to you, so they ripped it up and gave it to you. That wouldn't be okay.
Nope, definitely would not be okay.
And, yeah, hopefully they'll take further legal action, but it just indicates how unethical these people are.
Absolutely. I mean, they literally had a whole squad of cops lined up to take whoever this guy's firewood was away. So it was like one cop after another just grabbing pieces of firewood, grabbing pieces. It must have been, a dozen cops at least.
No. Bags.
By the way, they are up to $8.4 million raised by over 93,000 contributors on GiveSendGo.com, which apparently they did talk to the operator, the owner of GiveSendGo.com, and he has said he is not going to be intimidated, that he will keep this protest fundraiser online. So they've got the backing of the person who's actually runs this website. So it's still going with $8.4 million. And then, of course, there was the Tallycoin fundraiser as well. That was the Bitcoin fundraiser. And that, let's get an update here, 15.9 Bitcoin. So they are 76% of the way to their goal of hitting 21 Bitcoins raised for the truckers there.
How much
up
is
in
that
Ottawa.
In dollars?
I don't know. Bitcoin's what, $45,000 today right now, so let's say 600,000, 700,000. I mean, just round, giving you a round number.
Nice.
So kudos to them for that. We're going to again keep you in the loop as this continues to develop. I've got scheduled for Saturday night, we're going to have a special guest on the line with us. I have not yet been able to reach the actual organizers of what's going on in Canada, but I did reach Reed Coverdale, who is a podcaster. He's a libertarian activist. He's a New Hampshire native.
And he's a trucker.
And he's a truck driver. And he's going to come on with us on Saturday night to kind of give us, his perspective on what's going on. I want to also talk about the USA Trucker Convoy that supposedly starts on Saturday. Now, he told me he hadn't heard much about it, so he's going to do some research and try to figure out, if it's real or what's going on with that.
I've seen footage of one in Alaska.
Yeah, I'd heard the Alaskan truck drivers were doing something.
Are they going over to Canada?
No, I think they're staying within Alaska.
There's more coming up here. You can share your thoughts with us. 603-283-6160. We'll talk about the bridge blockades, inflation, and more coming up.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to MyMagicMud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. MyMagicMud.com, FTL20.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, phones are open. If you want to join the show, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, you've got me, Ian.
Me, Bonnie.
And nobody.
And we've been telling you about how Intercoin can help any business and organization launch their own currency or raise money using their own token. And now Intercoin has launched its investor token worldwide, and you can get it on an exchange over at xmarkets.com, exmarkets.com. All you need is an email address to sign up there at xmarkets. They actually respect your privacy, which is unusual for a centralized exchange. Over at xmarkets.com, you can deposit dozens of different cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, trade them for Tether, and then use that Tether to buy ITR, which is the Intercoin Investor Token. And you can learn more about the Intercoin vision at intercoin.org. You can also buy or sell ITR on xmarkets.com. That's xmarkets, exmarkets.com. You just might be advancing the cause of liberty around the world. As we continue here, speaking of around the world, we've been talking a lot about Canada recently, and I mentioned the other night that I had a story about how these Freedom Convoy protests are spreading, and we didn't get to that, so I think it's important to cover that, and we'll get into inflation and other things here in moments. But the story coming from the EpochTimes.com, where Jack Phillips is reporting that following the lead of Canadian truckers in Ottawa, a growing number of trucker-inspired protests are gaining momentum worldwide, with groups forming in the Netherlands, Austria, the United States, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. The Ottawa protest, known as Freedom Convoy, aims to do away with the Canadian COVID-19 vaccine mandates that affect truckers working between the U.S. and Canada.
Oh, by the way, Doug Ford is considering getting rid of mandates.
Really?
He's the Ontario Premier.
Good to know.
Yeah, and two of the provinces up there have already announced that they will be phasing out their mandates.
Correct. Saskatchewan and Alberta, I believe, are the two that have made those announcements. But
and those are the most rural, right?
As I understand it, they're kind of like the in-between provinces, basically. But I think that Saskatchewan's supposed to roll theirs back by the end of this month, so it's not going to be next week, but it's coming. As you said, they're working on it now. When they're going to, it's not done until it's done, as far as I'm concerned. Until then, it's just politicians making promises. So I think hopefully the truckers are going to continue to hang out until it's done.
Yeah, they seem to be.
Yeah. And by the way, it's now been 2 weeks, basically. As of tomorrow, it'll have been 2 weeks that these guys have occupied the streets there in Ottawa, which is it's a pretty epic protest, and it continues on.
Yeah.
So February 6th, the mayor of Ottawa declared an emergency, a state of emergency, while police
somebody panicked.
Started making arrests and seizing the truckers' fuel. In New Zealand, truckers reportedly launched a convoy from both the North and South Islands. They're slated to converge at the country's capital, Wellington, according to the New Zealand Herald. One of the truckers, who only calls herself Jess, told the Toronto Star she's attempting to organize a trucker protest in New Zealand, which has some of the strictest COVID-19 restrictions in the world, because, quote, her country needed to hear the call to stand up. And I saw footage today, I believe, from, I think it's Canberra in New Zealand, where there's apparently some pretty major anti-lockdown, anti-restriction, COVID restriction protests going on.
I heard some people got, arrested.
Very violently. They pulled a naked woman out of the crowd with a tremendous amount of violence. And,
why was she was already naked? Or?
Yeah, I don't think they pulled the clothes off her as they pulled her out of the crowd. But yeah, she was there protesting the lockdowns and were not very kind to her as they did that. It was pretty awful. She confirmed that after communicating with truckers via social media, the two groups will converge on Wellington in the near future. Brian Brace, the co-organizer of the U.S. protest, told Fox News, referring to vaccine requirements, quote, "I think you're starting to see what will become a global movement to end these mandates. It's a violation of your human rights to be mandated to take this vaccine. If you want it, go get it. But being mandated to get it, we're standing up against that. We think it's wrong." And again, that's the U.S. Freedom Convoy, which is expected to start perhaps on Saturday.
And where was the guy that quote came from?
His name is Brian Brace. I'm not sure from where he was located during the interview with Fox News, but last week, organizers of a U.S. Freedom Convoy criticized Facebook after the social media platform removed a page organizing protests against the mandates. I get that Facebook is convenient. I understand that a lot of people spend a lot of time there, but please stop organizing things on Facebook, because they can literally just pull the rug right out from under you, and whatever amount of work and time you've put into cultivating whatever Facebook page or group you're talking about can just be disappeared. And all of your work is gone. All of the connections that you had are gone. And that's frustrating.
promoting on Facebook makes sense. Actually putting what you're promoting on Facebook makes no sense.
Yeah, just tell anyone if you're interested in this, DM me, then DM them all your Telegram group.
Yeah, right. Put up a URL to wherever you're organizing it.
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, Telegram's a good one because there's no evidence that Telegram has ever interfered with anything except for terrorism groups on Telegram. I've never heard of any other kinds of groups being taken down.
And they don't call everything terrorism like the mainstream media does.
No, they actually are going after like ISIS groups and things like that. But that's the only thing you've ever heard about with Telegram. In fact, some of these trucker protests did get started on Telegram chat, from what I understand. So that's one thing to do. And as you point out here, Nobody, if you are organizing somewhere else, you just take that link and drop that in on Facebook and say, hey, if you want to help us with Trucker, Freedom Convoy USA, here's where you go.
They might just take that post down, though.
Well, they might, but that's fine because at least somebody saw it before that happened, unless they've taken the URL and like completely banned the use of that URL across their site, which eventually they could do. But then you can just get like a forwarding URL or something. There's ways around that, but don't make your home base something that they control, and Facebook is them.
Absolutely.
Truckers in the United Kingdom. The truckers told Fox News they're planning to drive from California to D.C., and I've seen both that plan and a plan to go to New York City, so we'll see how it ends up shaking out. Truckers in the UK are planning to demonstrate against mandates in a Glasgow, Scotland suburb, and will drive to Edinburgh, the capital, before heading to London. Organizers told the Scottish Daily Express newspaper. Freedom convoys will also depart in the English cities of Manchester, Exeter, Bristol, and Bournemouth, as well as cities in and around Ireland. In the Netherlands, according to the NL Times, dozens of trucks and other vehicles gathered in Leeuwarden to protest COVID-19 related mandates and restrictions on January 30th. A video posted by the, quote, Freedom Convoy Netherlands, unquote, showed the group. And elsewhere in Europe, let's see. Aron Lemmer, a business owner and organizer in Austria, told the outlet, remember, Austria is the place where they are mandating the vaccine by law. And if you don't have it, I think it was sometime this month, you will be facing a jail sentence in Austria if you don't get the vaccine.
I just Googled something because I keep being confused about why there would be a trucker protest or any protest against the mandates in England, because I thought that they got rid of them, but what I'm seeing is that they expire March 24th in England, so he didn't make it effective immediately.
Okay, and these guys are saying, well, we want it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
The number 603-283-6160. Phones are open here if you want to join the show. Your thoughts on the freedom protests, the convoys, are welcome.
And now, time for something totally different. Intercoin is a project that's working to make crypto mainstream. We use the power of smart contracts to help any community in the world launch their own cryptocurrency. Ever wanted to release your own coin or build your own app to grow your business? Intercoin's team builds apps that have reached 9 million people around the world. And now it's time to help make a real social impact in your local community. Go to intercoin.org and join the movement. That's intercoin.org.
You know, when we first started Intercoin about 3 years ago, we had a big vision to help every community in the world have access to the same tools that large states and federations do, to hold local elections on the blockchain, to have their own local currency, shop local, hire local, and help fight the forces of globalization that have decimated some of these communities.
Go to intercoin.org and join the movement.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Following contact with the Mayor of London today, it is quite clear that the Mayor no longer has sufficient confidence in my leadership for me to continue as Commissioner.
Cressida Dick, the head of the Metropolitan Police, announcing that she has resigned, just hours after insisting she had no intention of yielding to her critics.
He has left me no choice but to step aside. I say this with deep sadness and regret.
The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, says he told the Commissioner today he was not satisfied with her proposals for police reform after revelations of racism, bullying and misogyny within the force. Her departure comes right in the middle of efforts by the Met to investigate parties at number 10 Downing Street that may have broken COVID-19 lockdown regulations. Prime Minister Boris Johnson was among those paying tribute to her service following the shock announcement in London tonight. In other news, extensive diplomatic activity has continued in Europe today with fresh efforts to defuse the crisis over Ukraine. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson met NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg and the Polish President. Britain's Foreign Secretary Liz Truss had an extremely chilly meeting today with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. President Biden has been on the road in Virginia promoting his plans to reduce prescription drug prices.
Lowering the cost of prescription drugs is important, and giving families like yours just a little bit more breathing room makes a gigantic difference.
On Capitol Hill, the White House came under fire over the latest inflation figures showing price rises in the United States at their fastest level for 40 years. On the floor of the U.S. Senate, Republican leader Mitch McConnell.
Yet again, the data confirm what working families already know painfully well. Rampant inflation and soaring prices are crushing the American people.
Coronavirus vaccine producers in the US have been told to prepare for the under 5s to be cleared to receive inoculations. From FSN's bureau in New York, Sarah Walton reports.
The Centers for Disease Control says it wants the vaccines for young children to be ready to go in just a week and a half's time. The government says it secured enough of the jabs for all 18 million children in the US aged 6 months to 4 years old. The Food and Drug Administration is set to discuss granting emergency approval for a 2-dose regimen of jabs from Pfizer and BioNTech next Tuesday.
The National Archives in Washington is asking for a legal probe of former President Donald Trump's handling of presidential records after 15 boxes of documents made their way to the president's Mar-a-Lago estate instead of the archives. The former president today is denying a claim in a new book that he often flushed documents down his White House toilet. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. If you want to join the show, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can bring up anything you want to discuss. We're talking about some of the latest out of not just Ottawa, but the rest of the planet, where freedom convoys are striking up or have already started in other places. The story from the Epoch Times, which we're pretty much through, but just name some of the locations around the world where other truckers are coming together to drive towards state and national capitals. So it's not just Canada. It's apparently Austria. It's the UK. It's the Netherlands, Australia, and New Zealand. Apparently I got it wrong, and kudos to one of our chatters, I believe on Twitch. Gen User points out Canberra is in Australia. So apologies. The police violence that we were referring to earlier against the naked woman who was protesting was in Australia,
Not
apparently.
that they haven't all been violent against their citizens in the last few years.
Yeah, exactly. New Zealand is one of the worst places. They've definitely been particularly nasty to their people there. There's no doubt about it.
No.
So that's all going on. And again, we're going to keep you in the loop as more of this U.S. protest develops. It's supposed to kick off as soon as Saturday, starting in California, and then they're expecting to drive across the country for 6 days and then finish up in either D.C. or New York City. We'll have Reed Coverdale on Saturday night show. I confirmed that with him tonight. He's a freedom-loving trucker who's a New Hampshire native who, by the way, is moving back to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project.
Nice.
Apparently. So I definitely want to talk to him about that because he wasn't, from New Hampshire. He left New Hampshire to move to Utah, apparently. So he's been living out there in, I think, like Tooele or Salt Lake or something.
Yeah, lots of people think that Utah is like a free free state, and after living there for 5 years, I was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It's not a free state.
No.
I was like, I'm going to Texas where I can live free. And
I never thought Utah was a free state.
Yeah, or Texas.
No.
People get that impression about Texas, and it's like, no, they've got a lot of...
I mean, they definitely have the right-wing authoritarianism stuff going for them, but I wasn't expecting the left to just say, okay, there's a virus, everyone wear a mask, and then everybody shut down their businesses and churches.
And that happened in Utah?
No, in Texas.
Oh, in Texas.
I would have never expected Texans to be like, yes, sir, government will not go to church for 2 years or whatever.
Well, according to freedominthe50states.org, which is the Cato Institute, they do an annual study of various freedoms, both economic and personal freedoms. And Utah is actually number 20 in the list, so pretty mid-pack. And Texas is number 21, so they're basically, pretty much the same as far as that goes. But when you pull up the personal freedoms list, Texas goes all the way down to number 49 on the personal freedoms, while Utah, surprisingly, at number 28, so stays mid-pack. So Utah has more personal freedoms than Texas.
For some reason, I used to think, I never Googled it or anything. I just believed that Texas had the freest gun laws until I moved to New Hampshire, and people like Matt Roach told me that's not true. I was like, oh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have to get a permit or something in Texas, I think. Or did they finally get constitutional carry?
They finally got constitutional carry after I even moved. It was 2021
so last year.
Or something. Yeah.
But I bet you can't walk into the State House with a gun.
I bet you can't, and it's in Austin.
Because I know last I heard they were actually searching people who go into the State House in Texas, whereas here in New Hampshire you can just waltz right in. Nobody says anything to you. They don't search you. They don't know.
Yeah, one of the weirdest things that I experiences that I had when I first moved to New Hampshire, I was going into the State House, into the upper area, and they said I had a sign. And they wouldn't let me bring my sign in. They said that could be used as a weapon. I said, you do realize I've got a .357 on my hip. What makes you think I'm going to use the sign as a weapon?
Wow, that's so silly.
Yeah.
And during the secession bill hearing, they weren't letting people bring in signs because they could be used as a weapon, but they could bring in flags with flagpoles.
Yeah, and there was a guy with a MAC-10.
Oh, I'm sure there's lots of guys with guns
There's
there.
a lot of guys with guns. Anytime you're in New Hampshire, if you're in a room with other people, there's a good chance you're in the room with multiple other guns.
Yeah, I told
But
Ian,
they're scared to death of signs.
might change someone's mind.
Well, that's because information is actually dangerous, right?
Yeah,
to the
state.
I was telling Ian that every time I go to a big meeting of any kind, like a concert or anything like that, I get the idea in my brain the day before, oh, what if there's a mass shooting there? And, and
good luck.
Yeah, but we went to, what was it? Oh, the Libertarian Party.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what it's called.
The convention.
And I thought that on the way there. And then while we were sitting there at the convention, I was looking around me. I was like, wow, there's 5 people just right next to me that have guns. So I think we're safe.
Yeah.
All right, so if you want to join the show, you can. Let's go to Bad Slave. Speaking of New Hampshire, that's where he's calling from. Bad Slave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Howdy.
Hey, what's on your mind?
Just listened to one of the doctors, not Moreau, the one that starts with P. Anyway, the ones that were interviewing with Rogan. And,
are you talking about Malone? Robert
not
Malone?
The one that started with P.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't watch his show, so I don't know. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, well, anyway, I just listened to a chunk of it, and it was just terrible to the kids that ended up getting these vaccinations. And
you're talking about side effects. Hold on.
COVID
when you say
vaccines?
When you talking about side effects of COVID vaccines for kids?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they're up to about 40,000 dead.
Wow.
And the injured.
You're talking about overall, just to clarify, 40,000. You're talking about of all age ranges.
No, this is I can't remember the cutoff, but it was the younger people, the athletes and
and this is according to VAERS, the vaccine reporting system?
No.
Where are you getting that number?
This was better data. And
so from this doctor on Joe Rogan.
Okay.
It was, a doctor, like Robert Malone, that is of similar, pedigree, and it was the fact is that many of these athletes, and they're particularly vulnerable because they get this inflammation in their hearts, the myocarditis. Carditis, right.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, welcome back on the air. Nobody, thank you. Thanks for getting back. I'd love to hear the dialogue that came about in that whole discussion of your loosening up on the.
They didn't want to have a discussion.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting aspect of it. Do you want to tell what level of the story nobody, as far as how this happened?
Yeah, there was supposed to be a hearing, and at the last minute, the prosecutors said basically that they didn't want to make their argument, and they offered to settle.
Yeah, they basically agreed to the proposal, which was to allow you back on the show. And we're still not clear on how that affects whether or not you can be on other radio shows or other television broadcasts or perhaps post to a blog or whatever. But regardless, you're back on the air. Thanks, Pat Slade, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. And apparently we're allowed to talk outside of the studio, too, which is nice as well. So that's
yay.
Yeah. In fact, we might be going to the Liberty Forum coming up in the next few weeks. So if you're going to the New Hampshire Liberty Forum, which is, I'm told, is a sold-out event this year, we will look forward to seeing you there. More coming up.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized. which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. You can bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. So we were just talking at the beginning of the show that according to a press conference the truckers were having, the supposed organizers of the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa, according to a press conference they had yesterday, which I was watching as it was streaming live, they said that when they tried to withdraw funds from the GoFundMe early on, so before GoFundMe reached the $10 million goal, they withdrew like $1 or $1.5 million early on, and they were allowed to withdraw that. But then when it got into TD Bank, their bank, by the way, TD is actually a Canadian bank. It stands for Toronto Dominion, so they're based in Canada. When it got to TD Bank froze their funding. And then they had to jump through all kinds of hoops, whatever the hell the hoops the bankers put up. Well, I just noticed this breaking news out of Toronto, according to the government's own quote-unquote news, CBC, the cbc.ca. Guess what's happened now? Because remember, they started raising money on Give, Send, Go, which, as I understand it, is an American fundraising platform, because they're raising in dollars on this platform instead of Canadian dollars, which is what they were doing on GoFundMe. Guess what's happening? Ontario court freezes access to funds raised on the Give, Send, Go platform.
Wow.
A Superior Court of Justice has granted a request from the Ontario government.
Don't they mean just us?
Yes. From the Ontario government to freeze access to millions of dollars donated through online fundraising platform Give, Send, Go to the Truckers Convoy protesting COVID-19 restrictions in Ottawa and at several border crossings. A statement from Premier Doug Ford's office on Thursday. Remember Doug Ford? He's the brother of the crack-smoking mayor of Toronto?
Yes.
Wow.
On Thursday, said Attorney General Doug Downey brought the application for the order under Section 490.8 of the Criminal Code to prohibit anyone from distributing donations made through the websites Freedom Convoy 2022 and Adopt a Trucker campaign pages. So apparently, I don't know if this order is against the actual truckers themselves or if it's against Give, Send, Go, but they are frozen somehow. Ivana...
Which is weird because I Googled it and I found out they're a Boston-based business.
Yeah, I
Give,
figured
Send,
they were
Go.
based in the United States, but they could very easily put the crackdown on any Canadian bank that would be receiving a wire transfer, for instance, from Give, Send, Go. Ivana Yelich, spokesperson for the Premier, said the order, quote, binds any and all parties with possession or control over these donations, unquote. Convoy organizers quickly set up the campaign on Christian fundraising site Give, Send, Go after donors initially raised more than $10 million through GoFundMe. And then they go and they tell you about what happened with GoFundMe. And
GoFraudMe.
Yeah. Let's see. What else do we need to know here? And as on Thursday, representatives on the Ontario government declined a third invitation to participate in trilateral talks to deal with ongoing vaccine or anti-vaccine mandate protests, according to CBC News. So weird. I wonder why they decline an invitation from the truckers. It's not clear who the trilateral talks are involving.
This says in 2021. I mean, it's related, I think. In 2021, PayPal cut ties with Give, Send, Go when they were raising money for the January 6 people who were put in jail.
Interesting.
So they can't even work with PayPal.
Well, what I had suspected about Give, Send, Go was that even if the Give, Send, Go company is in favor of this particular fundraiser, and according to what I've read, the CEO of it is absolutely in favor of it, of keeping it on his website, that doesn't mean that their banking partners won't cut them off. That doesn't mean that whoever it is that's doing these credit card charges for them isn't going to put the hammer down on them. Now, that's not what has happened so far, but essentially the government goons in Canada are saying, if you touch this money, it sounds like the injunction is against the truckers themselves. So the organizers, the people who are behind the fundraiser, not Give, Send, Go, but the people who created the fundraiser, saying, if you send any of this money into your Canadian bank accounts, or if you touch this money in any way, you'll be in violation of a court order, which would be a contempt of court, criminal contempt of court, and you could be thrown. I mean, I presume that exists in Canada. You could be thrown in prison for that.
It said it binds them, which is just another term the government uses that reminds me of religion. Because
yeah, it's magical sounding.
It sounds magical because what are they called? People who cast demons out? What are they called? Exorcists. They use that word. They say, I bind you, demon, and send you to hell.
Except the demons in this case are actually the government people, not the truckers. So that's the latest. So they got $8.5 or $8.4 million US sitting in this Give, Send, Go fundraiser, which is probably close to 10 million Canadian, sitting in this fundraiser. And now, according to the government goons, they can't even touch it.
Wow.
Which means that Bitcoin, cryptocurrency,
lucky they've got
wins.
The crypto.
Yeah, Bitcoin is the answer here, folks. They actually had a really long segment of their press conference yesterday. They brought in a Bitcoin, like a guy with a Bitcoin T-shirt on, and he went and he explained, how Bitcoin, allows you to raise money without having to ask anyone's permission, and that there's no one that stands in the way of it. Of course, there is the one problem of turning the Bitcoin into cash. Because unfortunately at this time you usually can't go to most businesses and spend Bitcoin. So even though they cannot be stopped raising the Bitcoin, they cannot be stopped from distributing the Bitcoin, but getting that Bitcoin over that hump of conversion into fiat money, the government gangs are making that harder and harder than ever by cracking down on exchanges all around the United States, and I presume Canada as well. So
while it's still possible and legal, like the government hasn't tried to crack down that hard, I think that I would suggest to our listeners, anytime you frequent a store or a gas station or anything like that, just ask the person in there, as long as they're like an owner or a manager or something, do you guys accept crypto? Oh, I'd love to spend crypto here. Just start doing that everywhere.
I ask anybody that question. I don't care if they're just the regular cashier, because there's a chance that the manager is going to be in earshot, or there's a chance that they'll see him later on, and
or
they
they'll
might
ask
just
the
say,
manager, like, "Hey, somebody asked this."
Yeah. Or later on, after they get off work, they might talk to the manager then and say, "Hey, somebody asked me about Bitcoin today," or whatever. You never know.
If you're like the second person that's come up and asked, the manager might be like, "This is interesting."
Here's the other thing about this Bitcoin fundraiser and why it is, in my opinion, still the better idea. Even though there's a challenge of getting the Bitcoin turned into Canadian dollars or US dollars or whatever it is you're going to turn it into, it's still going to be harder for them to detect that. Because if each trucker, so let's say there's, 100 truckers that are going to receive this 16 Bitcoin that they have raised so far. Let's say there's 100 truckers, so, then they're all getting a fraction of a Bitcoin, which is, less than, let's say, probably right now Bitcoin's $45,000 per coin, so they're going to get less than that. And then they can hook up their bank account to whatever Bitcoin exchange or whatever methods. I don't know what are the ones that operate in Canada, but surely there are a few different options. And it won't all be coming through one portal. There's not one guy who's saying, all right, I got to cash out 16 whole Bitcoins. No, it's going to be 100 guys that are going to try to cash out a fraction of a Bitcoin each. And so there may be some level of scrutiny on them, but it won't be the level it would be if one guy says, okay, I need $500,000, Canadian dollars today. That's going to set off some red flags at the exchange. They're going to say, okay, who is this guy? All right, we need to know more. Know your customer information. Where'd you get the funds? Oh, you're a trucker, are you? Oh, okay, you're one of these. Oh, okay, well, we heard about you, and we're going to have to check with our government friends first to see if we can give you this money. So the fact that there's going to be 100 people, or maybe more, that are going to be divvying these Bitcoins up means it's just going to be that much harder for the system to detect that activity. And so this is still the best way for these people to raise funds. If you haven't taken the time to learn about Bitcoin yet, get over to Bitcoin.com. That's where you can click Get Started at the top of the page, whether you're a truck driver or you're just a supporter and you want to learn about how to contribute to this fundraiser. Again, I'm going to link to it again. We linked it a couple days ago on our social media platform, but I'll link it again here so that we can find out how to give to this. But if you want to learn about how Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and other cryptocurrencies work, get over to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and dig into some of the introductory materials there.
I was about to say, that way you can trust that your money goes where you want it to go, but really, it's even better than that because it's trustless. You can verify that it goes where you want it to go.
Absolutely. There's more coming up here. You can share your thoughts. Hour 2 is next. It's Free Talk Live. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Some of the world's biggest car makers say production is being disrupted by trucker protests in Canada. Drivers are blocking 2 points along the U.S. border in protest against vaccine mandates and COVID-19 restrictions, preventing auto parts from being delivered to factories. FSN's North America correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
The most significant disruption is being caused by the closure of the Ambassador Bridge, which connects Ontario to the U.S. state of Michigan. It carries about a quarter of U.S.-Canada trade. Toyota, Ford, Chrysler and General Motors have all been forced to halt or curtail production. The disruption is estimated to be costing $300 million a day. The shutdowns come as a further blow to the car industry, which was already struggling with a global shortage of semiconductor chips due to the economic effects of the pandemic.
U.S. markets closed lower Thursday after a key indicator of inflation showed a faster than expected rise in prices. But shares were helped by a series of positive earnings reports. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The Dow lost more than 500 points as a sell-off accelerated towards the close of the US markets, ending the day down 1.5%. The S&P lost 1.8%, while the Nasdaq fell 2.1%. It comes after consumer price index data showed a year-on-year increase of 7.5%, the biggest gain since 1982. There's now increasing speculation the report may prompt the Federal Reserve to take even more aggressive action to curb rising inflation. Tech stocks fared poorly, with Adobe down 3.6% and Apple losing 1.7%. But Disney's share price rose nearly 4% after reporting 11.8 million new subscribers signed up to its Disney Plus streaming service in the fourth quarter. And better than expected earnings for Mattel saw the toy maker gain 8.3%.
The head of London's Metropolitan Police, Cressida Dick, says that she had no option but to resign after losing the confidence and support of the city's mayor, Sadiq Khan. Her decision came just hours after she told a radio interviewer that she had no intention of yielding to her critics. But she says once the mayor had rejected as inadequate her proposals to reform the police after revelations of racism, bullying, and misogyny within the force, she had to go.
Following contact with the Mayor of London today, it is quite clear that the Mayor no longer has sufficient confidence in my leadership of the Metropolitan Police Service for me to continue as Commissioner. He has left me no choice but to step aside.
And Luc Montagnier, the man who co-discovered the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, has died at the age of 89. The Frenchman first began studying the mysterious virus in the early 1980s. Montagnier was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2008 for his work. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at Wednesday's remarkable announcement of a breakthrough in the world of nuclear fusion. Scientists at the Jet Laboratory in Oxfordshire set a new record for the amount of energy they could produce when they squeezed two forms of hydrogen together. Back in 1997, they proved it was possible to create a small amount of energy, but this latest experiment more than doubled the output, generating enough energy in around 5 seconds to boil 60 kettles worth of water. It's a small step, but an important one, according to Malcolm Grimstone, a senior research fellow in the energy department at Imperial College London.
It's the energy of the universe. It's why we have solar power, is because the sun is a massive fusion reactor. How do you maintain something at that temperature? You can't keep it in anything solid, because it would simply touch the sides and lose all its energy immediately. Part of the excitement of the physics is developing what they call magnetic bottles, huge magnetic fields that hold the material in place. And that's been demonstrated at the Joint European Tourist Jet near Oxford. But yes, anything as exciting as the energy for the universe, harnessing it on Earth, I'm tempted to say who wouldn't be excited by it.
And he reckons nuclear fusion could be commercialised by the year 2050, dramatically expanding the world's access to cost-effective clean energy. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. Some of the world's biggest car makers say production is being disrupted by truckers protesting vaccine mandates at the Canadian border with the U.S. U.S. markets closed lower after a key indicator of inflation shows a faster than expected rise in prices. And the head of London's Metropolitan Police says she had no option but to resign after losing the confidence and support of the city's mayor. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
From the admission of Ant Colony 000082567 KLN 00067X into the Union in 1897 to the day in 1817 when embarrassed construction workers realized they put the Erie Canal in the wrong place. The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On August 5th, 1962, Nelson Mandela was jailed until 1990, becoming fully rehabilitated through the South African penal system. And thanks to the services provided to him while imprisoned, emerged from jail a successful politician and internationally revered symbol of peace. Mandela's record of overcoming hardships and moving South Africa beyond its formidable racial struggles is a lasting testament to South Africa's correctional facilities and prove that the penal system's small cells, demeaning work duties, and minimal rations are exactly the tools needed for a prisoner to truly become a reformed citizen.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open. You can join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio here tonight, you've got Ian.
And Bonnie.
And nobody.
We're talking about the good news and the bad news coming out of Ottawa, where the trucker convoy, the Freedom Convoy, it's about ready to cross into its second full week. As of Friday and Saturday, it'll have been 2 whole weeks that the protest has been ongoing, with truck drivers parked up all around the Parliament area in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. Apparently, there's also truckers in other countries that are emulating this. There may be a USA trucker convoy starting up as soon as Saturday, and we are going to continue, of course, to cover this. But one of the more interesting aspects, besides what's going on the street level, where it's basically an ongoing party, they've got like bounce houses for the kids, they got people cooking, they got people coming in with donations.
Where are they putting the bounce houses?
Just
like
right in the
fields?
street.
Oh, in the street.
Yeah, just right in the street. They've literally taken over. You remember the autonomous zone, quote unquote, from Seattle a couple of years ago?
Wasn't it Portland?
Whatever. Portland, Seattle, basically.
I don't really know the difference.
Yeah, same thing.
Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon.
Correct. But the autonomous zone was, kind of like this, where they took over the streets, and the government really couldn't do anything about it because there was such a large number of people. And the same exact thing has happened here, except not from the left, but more of, I don't know if you want to call it right-wing or what, but it definitely doesn't have the same feel.
I would say centrist, because it seems to have left and right-wing elements.
Yeah, this one certainly seems to be kind of like the family-friendly variant of it. People are out there. It's not as serious as far as the occupiers are concerned. They're having fun. They're throwing dance parties. There
isn't a warlord.
Yeah, there's not a media-appointed warlord who's running guns in and out of the protest. At least not that we're aware of. But it's interesting watching this. The footage, by the way, still coming out of a channel called Otto Walks. He's streaming live right now. Those truckers are still there. The signage is still there. There's still a bunch of people in the streets. And again, we're approaching the second weekend. I guess this would be technically the third weekend, because this started on a weekend. Basically, it started 2 Saturdays ago, and then it went through another weekend. So this will be the third weekend. And again, people coming up from all over the place to visit and to come out. Looks like somebody's got porta potties out there, so we were wondering about that. How are they handling people who have to go? So somebody did think ahead, and they brought some porta potties out. So that's a good thing.
A good plan.
But so the good news again is that they're staying. The good news is these drivers are dedicated. They are willing to take the risk of staying there and getting, potential criminal charges. They're now the crackdown has begun as of this week. Earlier this week, I think it was Sunday, the mayor of the city announced a state of emergency, so-called. And then, of course, they use that as the excuse to go around and start confiscating gas canisters from people to try to prohibit. They actually announced that anyone who is caught bringing in, quote-unquote, material support to the drivers is subject to being arrested. So people who are bringing in gas, people who are bringing in food, people who are apparently bringing in firewood. There were cops confiscating firewood yesterday in Ottawa.
Wow.
So,
and it's amazing that this is a legal protest. They do have a right to protest in Canada, supposedly, but that won't stop the pigs from trying to put you in prison.
Nope. And they said they've got like 64 different investigations going on simultaneously with the Ottawa Police Department investigating the truckers.
I'm sure they have even worse laws that let them do whatever they want during an emergency.
Sure. Yeah, state of emergency makes it so whatever constitutional protections there might be is completely wiped out.
You can steal from people now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a summary of where we're at, and now they know, the government gang knows how to cut off funding. They run the banks. All they have to do is go to the banks and say, hey, look, this person, you are not allowed to allow them any access to any outside deposits. That you just shut their accounts down, freeze them out, and that's what they're doing now with the Give, Send, Go. The folks here behind the protests, they thought they had a runaround. They thought they'd had a workaround to the whole GoFundMe problem, where GoFundMe froze their account after they raised 10 million Canadian. They thought they were going to go with an alternative, and they did, and the alternative supported them. But now the government gang has issued an order saying that the funds are to be frozen from Give, Send, Go. So they've raised 8.4 million US, and I did the calculations, ran the conversion. It is over 10 million Canadian. So they have raised as much money on Give, Send, Go in, again, less than a week as they did on the GoFundMe site. But once again, they are being told they cannot access their funds. And so cryptocurrency is the answer here. It is the only answer to this situation.
It is pretty funny.
The banks are, it's not funny, it's sad. But
no, it's funny that, I don't know, not funny, like laughing funny, but it's interesting that this is proven that.
Yes, and that is one of the benefits of these crackdowns, is it is a wake-up call for people out there who think that they're going to be able to fund an uprising, a peaceful one, by the way, that they're going to be able to fund a protest movement through the old means. It is not possible. If you have their attention, they are going to do everything they can to stop you within their means. And the one thing that is not within their means is to control cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
They cannot do anything about that.
And
interestingly enough, if you compare this to the Black Lives Matter, and I support Black Lives Matter, I don't support the burning down of cities.
Correct.
But they were burning things down, and yet they were able to, apparently the people running Black Lives Matter were taking money out and
they didn't get
buying houses.
Yeah, buying mansions.
That's a good point. They didn't get frozen out of the financial system.
No, because they were supported by the political elite.
That's a good point. And they're pro-government, ultimately. They're not against, they might be against the current status quo, but they want the state to exist. And I'm sure there are people that want the state to exist in Toronto, or rather Ottawa.
But that's why I think this is, I didn't really mean that it was funny, but I'm just kind of happy to see that this has been something that has come out of this, just because it's a lot of conservatives, at least in America, that are behind the truckers, and they need to understand, like, listen, look, you can either back the blue or you can back the truckers.
Not both.
And also that
the blue are the ones that are coming and taking these truckers' gas.
You can either be for cryptocurrency or against the truckers.
Yep.
Because a lot of conservatives, they think, oh, well, what if the vaccine isn't the mark of the beast? What if it's Bitcoin? Just because I don't know.
Yeah, wake up. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency equals freedom. It is something the government cannot touch. They cannot do anything about it, and boy, does it piss them off. That's why they raided our studio almost a year ago, and your home, nobody, and the homes of some of our friends and co-hosts here. So they're very serious about going after cryptocurrency, but they cannot stop it because it is permissionless. And what that means is you don't have to go and sit in front of some banker for an hour, show your ID, fill out a bunch of forms, wait some more, and then wait because they didn't set
judged and questioned and pried.
Yep. And then you gotta wait some more and call customer service because they didn't open your online account. Oh, and your online account didn't have the features activated that it should have. So now you gotta wait some more time.
Are you sure you're not being defrauded when you're just trying to spend your own money?
Yeah. Just ridiculous.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Trying to buy a house? None of your business.
So that's pretty much the status of where we're at with the Toronto, or rather, I keep saying Toronto, with the Ottawa situation. But there actually is a story out of Toronto here, and that is that from the AP, the Biden administration is now urging Justin Trudeau's government gang to use its federal powers to end the truck blockade by Canadians who are protesting the COVID restrictions as the bumper-to-bumper demonstration forced auto plants on both sides of the U.S. and Canadian border to shut down or scale back production. So remember we talked about how they're locking down the bridges between, say, Detroit and Windsor in Ontario and other places.
The Ambassador Bridge, which is the one I used to cross when I wanted to go to the Canadian titty bars.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that coming up here in moments. The number is 603-283-6160. You can join us.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about the solution to centralized banking freezing and government gangs freezing fundraising efforts like the Give, Send, Go fundraiser, which has raised over $10 million in Canadian dollars worth of money so far in just the last several days.
The Give, Send, Go one raised $10 million?
In Canadian dollars, yeah. It's at 8.4 or 8.5 million US, which is over 10 million
I
Canadian.
guess I misheard that earlier when you said that. I thought you said a million because I knew I knew the
Bitcoin
other one
fundraiser is not quite to $1 million.
I knew that the GoFundMe raised $10 million Canadian dollars. So.
Correct. That was 10 million Canadian.
But I didn't know Give, Send, Go did already. Too.
They sure did. Because there's a tremendous level of support for these Freedom Convoy truckers. But unfortunately, the government is stepping in the way saying, no, you can't do that. So we're talking about the cryptocurrency aspect of this. We want to come back around to it. But
sorry. The first time that GoFundMe raised $10 million, they froze it. And then it's just even more clear that people are consensually wanting to give this money to the truckers when they do it all over again the next week with a new platform and still, it has to be frozen. This is can't be done.
This is the proceeds of crime. We can't allow this.
Voluntary, clearly voluntary.
The crime of dissenting against your government.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they applied for the freeze out based on some sort of statute in Canada that basically says, if it is going to somehow assist a criminal act or whatever, then they can freeze this. And so, because they've written some tickets,
I don't see how protesting is a criminal act.
Well, technically, protesting isn't a criminal act, but they're going to say, we've arrested people for blah 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 violating this judge's order. We've ticketed hundreds of people for violations of the traffic code. So therefore, this is a criminal protest. Therefore, funds are frozen.
I was thinking,
and the tickets don't have to be valid.
That's right.
Because all they have to do is buy themselves time.
I was thinking it might be better for the truckers in America to go to all the capitals, including Alberta.
Capitals?
Yeah, isn't it? Sorry, not Alberta.
That's
Albany.
Canada.
Albany, instead of going to New York City. Because what kind of impact is it really going to have in a city of millions and millions of people instead of Albany is a lot smaller.
That's a good point. There's a lot more cops in New York City than there are in Albany.
Oh yeah, and also that's where the government actually meets, and also the streets seem kind of crappy there. Like not like potholes, but like
it's just a crappy
thin,
city,
and it feels like you're gonna run into the walls in some places in Albany.
It would definitely be it would seem like a lot larger of a protest if they occupied Albany. You're
a bigger
right about
impact,
that.
I think.
Somebody should put you in charge of this USA Trucker protest thing.
Come on, truckers, listen to me.
So Edwin Lundstrom in our YouTube chat is asking us to chime in on the cryptocurrency death issue. And I guess what he's referring to is what happens when you die, because I think they were talking about that earlier tonight in the case of if you have cryptocurrency.
It's just like anything else. You need to have a plan for when you die. You need to have a will. It's personal responsibility. Right?
Yeah, that's the short answer. The kind of more technical answer to that question, without going too deep, is presuming you trust your kids and you don't have a crackhead son or something like that who's going to
Biden.
Empty your he's going to get some free crack pipes and go empty your bank account or empty your crypto accounts. As long as your kids are trustworthy, you can give them your keys. You can give them your cryptocurrency keys. If not, then things get kind of iffy because and there may be some sort of solution out there that's been come up with for this. Maybe there's something I don't know about, and that would actually be something I'm interested in hearing about, is what are the death solutions for distributing cryptocurrency? Because, maybe you trust your lawyer, maybe you don't.
I was about to say, it would probably be easier to find a legal or a lawyer solution if the government wasn't getting in the way of cryptocurrency still are trying to.
Well, but the thing
America.
is, then you still have to trust the lawyer not to empty your crypto account, right? Because if you give somebody your
you could split the words between two lawyers.
You could.
That would be
that's one way.
That would be one thing that would make it much harder.
I mean, it's visible that somebody stole it, so if your lawyer is the only one with the keys and you die, your family will know exactly what happened.
True. That's true.
And then they're going to lose their credibility just stealing people's Bitcoin.
It would be interesting to hear if people have already dealt with this. Like, what are some of the stories from how did this get handled? How were coins passed down? Obviously, you can take the keys to the crypto, which in most cases are like a dozen or 24 words that you write down when you first create the crypto wallet. You're suggesting nobody split it up, maybe split it between two lawyers or split it up among your kids.
I think most people can trust their kids. I don't think most people have all crackhead
some
kids.
families have fighting kids, though, right? Like they don't like each other. They're fighting with one another. They're fighting over the estate, that kind of thing. There might be another potential to where you could write the words down and seal it in some way and then have the lawyer hold that. That way the attorney doesn't even know what they have, but they know that on your death that file is to be given to your heirs. So that might be another option. And there's also, of course, multi-signature wallets, which may also be another way to play this, wherein you could you create a multi-signature Bitcoin wallet. What that means is a normal Bitcoin wallet just requires the owner to authorize a transaction. So the one person holds the key. They authorize the transaction. It's done. A multi-signature wallet is kind of like those, like those movies. You remember the heist movies where they go to a bank vault and somebody's got to turn the key at the same time as somebody on the other side of the room has to turn another key, and then the bank vault opens?
No.
You never seen that before? So yeah, it's like it basically requires more than one person to get into the in this case the bank vault or whatever. That can be done with a Bitcoin wallet, where you can require more than one person has to authorize, so they both have two different keys, but in order to release the Bitcoin, both of those keys, or 3 keys or 4 keys, or however many you want to set it up for, have to be utilized in order to make that happen. Now, the problem there is if you are in the same airplane with your son and the airplane goes down, and then you wanted to leave your Bitcoin to both your son and your daughter, and you set up a multi-signature wallet, then your daughter's not going to get into it because your son just died at the same time as you. So yeah, there's some circumstances in which the multi-sig thing might not work either. So there's no real perfect answer to this question from what I can tell.
I mean, I've never heard of a huge problem of lawyers stealing people's regular money.
Well, it happens once in a while. It happened to Stormy Daniels, apparently.
Oh.
Yeah, it does
happen.
happen.
The porn star?
Yeah, the one who, her lawyer, when she sued Trump, apparently jacked some of her money, and he's in prison for it now.
Wow.
But, they caught him and put him in prison. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just after what we were just kind of spouting off about, my personal favorite of those options is to secure some crypto backup words by somebody who doesn't know that they have them, but is still trustworthy to deliver. Seal an envelope, make sure that it's like, all right, this, you got to give it to my kids. And then inside the envelope is the instructions on what the words mean, right? You just don't want to give somebody a dozen words, and if they don't know what that is, then
maybe just have at least one good kid.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea too. But then again, you can't trust the good kid to agree with the other kids if you're trying to split up the money. So
then have a favorite kid.
Your thoughts? Johnny B. Good says lawyers should not be trusted. So yeah, that's another fair warning. More coming up. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odyssey, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our Odyssey channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odyssey today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Some of the world's biggest car makers say production is being disrupted by trucker protests in Canada. Drivers are blocking 2 points along the U.S. border in protest against vaccine mandates and COVID-19 restrictions, preventing auto parts from being delivered to factories. FSN's North America correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
The most significant disruption is being caused by the closure of the Ambassador Bridge, which connects Ontario to the U.S. state of Michigan. It carries about a quarter of U.S.-Canada trade. Toyota, Ford, Chrysler and General Motors have all been forced to halt or curtail production. The disruption is estimated to be costing $300 million a day. The shutdowns come as a further blow to the car industry, which was already struggling with a global shortage of semiconductor chips due to the economic effects of the pandemic.
U.S. markets closed lower Thursday after a key indicator of inflation showed a faster than expected rise in prices. But shares were helped by a series of positive earnings reports. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The Dow lost more than 500 points as a sell-off accelerated towards the close of the U.S. markets, ending the day down 1.5%. The S&P lost 1.8%, while the Nasdaq fell 2.1%. It comes after consumer price index data showed a year-on-year increase of 7.5%, the biggest gain since 1982. There's now increasing speculation the report may prompt the Federal Reserve to take even more aggressive action to curb rising inflation. Tech stocks fared poorly, with Adobe down 3.6% and Apple losing 1.7%. But Disney's share price rose nearly 4% after reporting 11.8 million new subscribers signed up to its Disney Plus streaming service in the fourth quarter. And better than expected earnings for Mattel saw the toy maker gain 8.3%.
The head of London's Metropolitan Police, Cressida Dick, says that she had no option but to resign after losing the confidence and support of the city's mayor, Sadiq Khan. Her decision came just hours after she told a radio interviewer that she had no intention of yielding to her critics. But she says once the mayor had rejected as inadequate her proposals to reform the police after revelations of racism, bullying, and misogyny within the force, she had to go.
Following contact with the Mayor of London today, it is quite clear that the Mayor no longer has sufficient confidence in my leadership of the Metropolitan Police Service for me to continue as Commissioner. He has left me no choice but to step aside.
And Luc Montagnier, the man who co-discovered the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, has died at the age of 89. The Frenchman first began studying the mysterious virus in the early 1980s. Montagnier was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2008 for his work. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And nobody formerly known as Rich Paul.
Don't forget, you can help out some people in extreme poverty in Kenya right now by going to give.freetalklive.com and giving some money to Give Directly. They will, and by the way, they do take cryptocurrency at Give Directly, but they will accept your contributions to help out people that are in extreme poverty. They give cash directly to these people, or the equivalent of cash. In the case in Africa, phone minutes are basically like cash. It makes it easy for people to send money back and forth over there, and that's what they do. They find people to give that money to, and they give it to them, and it helps them get employment, nutrition, health, and education. They've given over $400 million worth of funds to over 1 million people in just the last decade. Give Directly is doing some good work, and we're backing you up by doubling your contribution. We're going to match your contribution up to $30,000 in total. Go to give.freetalklive.com. That's give.freetalklive.com.
And when does that end?
I have no idea. I mean, you can always give directly. They're going to be around whether, we're promoting their URL or not. So
I was just wondering, it might be like some people might want to, if we're going to back them, but they might need to wait a few weeks before they have the money to give or something. I don't know. I was just wondering.
I
noticed we didn't say.
think that the promotional period was supposed to be through the holidays, but we got it extended or whatever, and we're at about 10% of our goal right now. So we could use, a little bit more support. But hey, any
I'm so
little
glad that people gave.
Yeah, any amount counts, and so thank you to, you got to shoot for the moon if you want to get over the fence, that kind of thing. So head over to give.freetalklive.com. Of course, a lot of people giving to the truck drivers and the protest out there in Canada. We were talking about the bridges that have been blocked, and you used to live, near the Windsor, Ontario Ambassador Bridge, which is one of the bridges. I believe there's multiple bridges that truckers are occupying I think it's the Canadian side of this particular bridge. And for the fourth straight day, according to the Associated Press, scores of truckers, scores or dozens, as I understand it, taking part in what they dub
a score is 20.
Oh, is it 20?
Yep.
So scores would be a lot of dozens in that case. Blocked the Ambassador Bridge, disrupting the flow of auto parts and other products between the two countries. White House said the White House Homeland Security Secretary and Transportation Secretary spoke with their Canadian counterparts and urged them to help resolve the standoff.
And also the governor of Michigan, the lady that almost got kidnapped, she was like calling on the government.
She never really came close to getting kidnapped, considering that everybody in on that plot was FBI.
Yeah.
The majority, I think, were FBI.
Like all but two, and all the leaders.
So they talk about in this article how Give, Send, Go's fundraising has been frozen with political and economic pressure mounting. Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins announced the city will seek a court injunction to end the occupation. But what are they going to do, even with their fancy injunction, if these guys don't get off the bridge?
Bomb the bridge.
I guess they could go one by one and try to arrest every single driver, but then if they can't find a tow truck company that's willing to tow all the trucks off the bridge, I guess they could drive them if they arrest
They could drop the mask and vaccine mandates for the truckers.
Yeah, then they just go home.
Yep.
I think the truckers don't just want to end their own restrictions. I think they want to see all the restrictions ended. I think this is about ending the entire province's COVID restrictions. So, quote, the economic harm is not sustainable and must come to an end, said the Windsor mayor. Oh, well, what about the economic harm caused by your restrictions, closing businesses, ending careers, destroying lives, creating suicides, drug overdoses through these lockdowns? What about all that?
I watched a video, of somebody in the parliament calling Trudeau out specifically for that, saying, at this point, don't you think that we've done enough damage with the lockdowns, and that's what the people want to see is the lockdowns ended because it will ultimately be better for Canada in general, something like that. I'm obviously paraphrasing, and Trudeau literally just acted like he didn't hear any of the facts that guy was laying out for him, and he was just like, yes, the most important thing Canadians can do is get vaccinated. We need Canadian. It was like a robot talking.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, he doesn't care if you tell him those things.
That's all they can say is get vaccinated, get vaccinated, get vaccinated.
Smoke crack.
Well, guess what? Get vaccinated, you're still going to get Omicron.
Yep.
So what did you do? Nothing.
And you can still spread it throughout this whole entire thing before Omicron even came up. I think that's probably why Omicron showed up.
I heard something on the news that there's some new Omicron variant that is actually more likely to infect vaccinated people or something like that.
Oh, isn't that special?
But it's like,
wow.
It's just ridiculous. And what you did if you got vaccinated was you became an experiment. You decided you were going to, experiment on your body and let these big pharmaceutical manufacturers have access to your person so they could put something that hasn't really been tested for very long into your veins. See what happens. That's what you did.
Which is fine if you want to participate in medical experiments. More power to you.
Your body, your choice.
Yeah.
In the U.S.
If a cold is worth it to you to do that, I mean, I just don't think that the average person would normally think that way, and you shouldn't be able to force that on other people.
in the U.S. Authorities brace for the possibility, so-called authorities, of the possibility of similar truck-borne protests inspired by the Canadians. And Paris and Belgium government goons have banned road blockades to head off disruptions there, too. Homeland Security in the U.S. said in a bulletin to local and state law enforcement agencies it has received reports that truckers are planning to, quote, potentially block roads in major metropolitan cities in a protest against vaccine mandates and other issues.
I was just thinking, the liberals who act like they're, I mean, it's mainly liberals, I think I can pretty much say that, who act like they're some kind of angel heroes for forcing people at the doors of hospitals to wear masks, or they call the security, and forcing people to get vaccinated and being all behind it and feeling like they're heroes for that, like they're saving the world. Mm-hmm. Where were they standing up for people who wanted to take experimental cancer drugs and the government told them no? I mean, I've never seen a big movement doing that. I mean, imagine what these people could change if they actually wanted to change the world and weren't just being obedient people who feel like, oh, they don't have to do any work, but they feel good about themselves.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. That happened to my wife. She there was an experimental treatment that she wanted to take, and the doctors said, well, it would take us 6 months to get permission to use that treatment, and she'll be dead by then. So we're not going to fill out they didn't even bother to fill out the paperwork.
Oh my God.
Right. So thank the FDA for that one.
Yep.
The agency said the convoy could begin in Southern California as early as this weekend, possibly disrupting traffic around the Super Bowl, and reach Washington in March in time for the state of the, I'm guessing the Super Bowl's in California?
I don't know.
I haven't paid attention.
Me either. I think it depends on who's playing, but I think it was like in Florida
No, they pick the Super Bowl regardless of who's playing.
Oh.
So the location just moves around, and then whatever two teams happen to be, they go to there.
Well, it shows how much I know about sports ball.
Right. In time for the State of the Union address. Oh, okay, so that's their plan. They're going to go from the West Coast to D.C. in time for the State of the Union, according to a copy of the bulletin obtained by the Associated Press. The White House said the department is, quote, surging additional staff, unquote, to the Super Bowl just in case. The ban on road blockades in Europe and the threat of prison and heavy fines were likewise prompted by online chatter calling on drivers to converge on Paris and Brussels over the next few days. The Ambassador Bridge, by the way, is the busiest U.S.-Canadian border crossing of all, carrying 25% of all trade between the two countries. Wow, so they shut down the number one border crossing as part of this protest, so the effects of the blockade have been felt quite rapidly there. According to Ford, its Windsor engine plant reopened Thursday after being shut down Wednesday because of a lack of parts. Okay, so they had to shut down for one day? I mean, that's not a big deal.
I can live with it.
The whole country had to shut down for 2 years because of what they're protesting against.
Although they are saying the factory and their assembly plant is operating at a reduced capacity. Their assembly plant located in Oakville, Ontario, near Toronto. So the U.S. government is demanding that the Canadian government crack down on these protesters on the bridge. Meanwhile, they're still sitting there, and no one's getting through. There's more coming up here in moments. 603-283-6160. You can join us. It's Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here and bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Bonnie, and nobody joining you. And, of course, you can take control and bring up anything. We have been talking a lot, especially in the last week or so, about the Freedom Convoy in Canada, in Ottawa specifically, but also expanding to some of the key bridges, specifically the Windsor, Ontario, Detroit, Michigan bridge, which is apparently the 1 bridge. It's blockaded right now by truck drivers, and they're not moving. As a result, the Port Huron Bridge, which is a little ways to the north of that, has been the sort of the go-to bridge for drivers that need to get in to Canada from the United States. But simply because that bridge is so popular now, there's a 2-hour delay, according to the story at the Associated Press, to get through that bridge. So it's been a major choke point, even though traffic is moving, it's barely moving in that location. So it's very difficult to get products across the border at this time.
The trucks aren't stopped?
So the trucks are stopped at the Windsor Bridge, but if you go north up, what's the lake there?
Port Huron, did they say?
Port Huron is where the other bridge is that is open. I just don't know what the lake is.
Superior or something?
I don't have a map in front of me. I figured you lived there.
let's see, Lake Michigan on one side and I think Lake Superior on the other side.
Right, there's a river between them, right, that I think. Anyway, we can pull up a map at a later point, but Port Huron is north of the Detroit Bridge. And so the Detroit Bridge is the one that's stopped.
So they're going around, but even that one
goes over the Detroit River.
Right.
Which
connects
runs
a couple of the lakes, right?
Yeah, the Detroit River runs between Detroit and Windsor.
So then the truckers are going north to the Port Huron Bridge, and they're trying to get across there, but because so many of them
the truckers
who
aren't part of the convoy, right?
Correct. The ones that are trying to get to, get a load up to Canada. The ones going from the U.S. to Canada, they're having a difficult
time.
They're
trying to drop a load in Canada.
Right. But because there's an unusual number of them going to a smaller, crossing point, it's essentially choking the traffic and making it difficult for them to get through.
Well, they should just join the convoy then.
They should. Unfortunately, some of these drivers are not independent operators, and so therefore I'm sure they're worried they're going to lose their jobs if they were to join the convoy.
I'm really interested to see what the ones in Alaska are doing because, I don't know, they could join the Canadians or they could just do an Alaska-based one. But isn't Alaska really not that bad on mandates, I thought I heard?
I would suspect they're not as bad as a lot of the other states just because, Alaska has a lot of they're a very individualist state.
I suspect you can't be a bitch and live in Alaska.
Not easily.
No doubt. So you can bring up anything. We're going to go to your phone call. Sarah is on the line in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, yeah. I just want to mention that, the Canadians have been going to vacation in Havana, Cuba for years. I don't know when they started that relations. But it's been going on for a while because remember there was a Canadian hosting your show, and he was from Canada, and then he said his families were vacationing in Havana. So
who the hell was a Canadian hosting?
Maybe
our
somebody
show?
called in.
People should vacation in Havana. People should go down and see for themselves, what communism gives you, which is starvation.
Yeah, and poverty.
I'm sure that in the touristy parts, you wouldn't be able to see that. You'd have to venture.
They try to hide it.
Yeah.
Well, this was before. That's before we Americans could go there now. But I'm talking about, the Canadians were always able to go on vacation, like 30 years ago. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, that's right.
Unfortunately, we can't go anymore. We could at one time, and Trump... Obama opened it up and then Trump shut it down. So that was one of the places where Trump was very anti-freedom.
Didn't close Guantanamo Bay, but closed access to Americans visiting Cuba.
I don't know about that, nobody. Maybe it's back open again. According to just a quick Google search here shows there's a nonstop flight available from JetBlue. It's a 4-hour flight from New York City to Havana.
Really?
$645 will get you there.
Yeah, maybe
could be wrong.
Maybe Biden just reinstated it because I know he went and overturned a lot of things Trump did on the first day. I don't really pay attention to what.
According to a December 15th article at viahero.com, as an American traveler, all you have to do to travel to Cuba in 2022 is choose one of 11 categories of authorized travel. So you have to plan your trip so it falls into one of these categories. So I guess there's a certain level of bureaucracy.
Is there one of the levels is just leisure?
I'm not sure. I don't see
it doesn't show you.
The list here right off the bat. But yes, it can be done. You might have to fill out an extra form or something like that, but it is possible. And I support this, from the perspective of I think that there should be no sanctions. There should be no travel restrictions. Americans should be free, the rest of the world for that matter, should be free to go wherever they want, to visit whomever they want, and that way we can mix people together all around the planet. The people of Cuba can learn about the wealth of America. They can get into business with Americans. They can buy things from Americans, and that is the thing that truly brings people out of poverty, to be able to engage in free trade.
I would really like to know if anybody out there listening knows of any really good websites for just connecting with people from other countries that isn't heavily monitored or
You mean
heavily
like a
awful,
Facebook or something?
Well, something better than that,
Right.
because I just want to know, I really want to know what the average Ukrainian is thinking about what's going on right now. If they're America, don't come save us from Russia, we're fine, or what, because I don't know what they're thinking. You only hear what the government wants, the government of Ukraine or the government of Russia or the government, and all they hear is what the government of the United States is saying. They don't know what we're saying. You know what I mean?
And then also you never hear about the Communist Party that want communism of Ukraine. All you hear about is all the people that don't want the Russians.
I mean, that could be true, Sarah.
In all of the countries nearby, Poland, that are still communist, they want communism back.
I don't think Poland is a communist country.
Well, what Sarah's basic idea is, it's kind of on the same idea as me, though. If the average Ukrainian actually wants to be part of Russia, how am I supposed to know that? All I know is what Biden and...
Or the mainstream media tells you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really think that they're all wanting to be communists, because who wants that? But.
So I do have the list here, according to viahero.com. According to the story, as of June 5th, 2019, you can no longer go to Cuba on a guided group tour, for whatever reason, or take a cruise to Cuba, but you can travel independently under 11 categories. There used to be 12, but they are eliminated. The one they eliminated was educational activities by persons at an academic institution. But if you can do it under the other 11, which include support for the Cuban people, professional research, religious activities, visiting family, journalistic activities, humanitarian projects, or to provide support to the Cuban people, which is the first one.
Weird.
Official business for the U.S. government, foreign governments, and other governmental organizations. Public performance, authorization to provide travel services, and activities of private foundations, research, or educational institutes. They say the most popular choice is support for the Cuban people.
So it sounds like Trump just made it harder.
Maybe it was Trump.
My whole point was that, remember
2019.
I said that there's a large communist party in Canada. It still might be capitalist country, but there's a communist influence in Canada, and that Trudeau was down there in the 1970s, and he was a politician. Trudeau family.
That's right.
Like you were saying, and then also,
and he's a communist.
Wasn't he born in the 70s?
And he is a communist, like I was speculating.
Yeah. So basically, the communists are in charge of Canada. So why don't you move to Canada? Have you considered a migration up there?
Well, the thing about it is that that's not the whole point. I'm here, and I have an important job to educate people about communism around the world. And the thing is that Canada has...
Look, I can understand. Why do you have to impose your philosophy on everybody? Why do you have to force everybody to live your way when there are already countries that live your way?
Well, the thing is that if people knew what communism was, like welfare, Medicaid, Medicare, disability like I'm on.
Well,
that's not an answer to
that's not what communism is. Communism is a situation where the government takes over the entire economy, and instead of being able to choose your job, you're forced into a job, and if you don't want the job they put you in re-education camps or the gulag.
Or
so
camp.
maybe somebody should educate you as to what communism really is.
Great point. Thank you for the call, Sarah. The number here is 603-283-6160. And notice she didn't answer his question either.
She never does.
Yeah, she never does. 603-283-6160. Hour 3 is on the way. You can join us here on Free Talk Live. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Some of the world's biggest car makers say production is being disrupted by trucker protests in Canada. Drivers are blocking 2 points along the U.S. border in protest against vaccine mandates and COVID-19 restrictions, preventing auto parts from being delivered to factories. FSN's North America correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
The most significant disruption is being caused by the closure of the Ambassador Bridge, which connects Ontario to the U.S. state of Michigan. It carries about a quarter of U.S.-Canada trade. Toyota, Ford, Chrysler and General Motors have all been forced to halt or curtail production. The disruption is estimated to be costing $300 million a day. The shutdowns come as a further blow to the car industry, which was already struggling with a global shortage of semiconductor chips due to the economic effects of the pandemic.
U.S. markets closed lower Thursday after a key indicator of inflation showed a faster than expected rise in prices. But shares were helped by a series of positive earnings reports. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The Dow lost more than 500 points as a sell-off accelerated towards the close of the U.S. markets, ending the day down 1.5%. The S&P lost 1.8%, while the Nasdaq fell 2.1%. It comes after consumer price index data showed a year-on-year increase of 7.5%, the biggest gain since 1982. There's now increasing speculation the report may prompt the Federal Reserve to take even more aggressive action to curb rising inflation. Tech stocks fared poorly, with Adobe down 3.6% and Apple losing 1.7%. But Disney's share price rose nearly 4% after reporting 11.8 million new subscribers signed up to its Disney Plus streaming service in the fourth quarter. And better than expected earnings for Mattel saw the toy maker gain 8.3%.
The head of London's Metropolitan Police, Cressida Dick, says that she had no option but to resign after losing the confidence and support of the city's mayor, Sadiq Khan. Her decision came just hours after she told a radio interviewer that she had no intention of yielding to her critics. But she says once the mayor had rejected as inadequate her proposals to reform the police after revelations of racism, bullying, and misogyny within the force, she had to go.
Following contact with the Mayor of London today, it is quite clear that the Mayor no longer has sufficient confidence in my leadership of the Metropolitan Police Service for me to continue as Commissioner. He has left me no choice but to step aside.
And Luc Montagnier, the man who co-discovered the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, has died at the age of 89. The Frenchman first began studying the mysterious virus in the early 1980s. Montagnier was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2008 for his work. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at Wednesday's remarkable announcement of a breakthrough in the world of nuclear fusion. Scientists at the Jet Laboratory in Oxfordshire set a new record for the amount of energy they could produce when they squeezed two forms of hydrogen together. Back in 1997, they proved it was possible to create a small amount of energy, but this latest experiment more than than doubled the output, generating enough energy in around 5 seconds to boil 60 kettles worth of water. It's a small step, but an important one, according to Malcolm Grimstone, a senior research fellow in the energy department at Imperial College London.
It's the energy of the universe. It's why we have solar power, is because the sun is a massive fusion reactor. How do you maintain something at that temperature? You can't keep it in anything solid because it would simply touch the sides and lose all its energy immediately. Part of the excitement of the physics is developing what they call magnetic bottles, huge magnetic fields that hold the material in place, and that's been demonstrated at the Joint European Tourist Jet near Oxford. But yes, anything as exciting as the energy for the universe, harnessing it on Earth, I'm tempted to say who wouldn't be excited by it.
And he reckons nuclear fusion could be commercialised by the year 2050, dramatically expanding the world's access to cost-effective clean energy. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. Some of the world's biggest car makers say production is being disrupted by truckers protesting vaccine mandates at the Canadian border with the U.S. U.S. markets closed lower after a key indicator of inflation shows a faster than expected rise in prices. And the head of London's Metropolitan Police says she had no option but to resign after losing the confidence and support of the city's mayor. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
A dead iPod is remembered as expensive. It's the Onion Radio News. This is Doyle Redland reporting. Despite heroic efforts at resuscitation, a third-generation 30-gigabyte iPod, serial number AP356372, was pronounced dead early this morning at the age of 2. The iPod's closest companion, Sarah Zartman, says she'll never forget the great music it used to play, nor will she forget the nearly $500 price tag.
I'll remember those 3,500 songs as long as I live. That iPod was convenient, portable, and really pricey.
Zartman added that had she known the iPod's lithium-ion battery would have such a short lifespan, she might have spent more time listening to it. AP356372 is survived by a BlackBerry. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, phone numbers here, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's not all about the protests, though, although the Freedom Convoy is certainly the most exciting thing happening out there right now as far as freedom is concerned. I love it. Oh, sorry about that, nobody. Let's try you now. Go ahead.
It really is.
Yeah, so we've been following it pretty closely here. By the way, with you tonight, it is Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And nobody.
But let's get into some, because the Freedom Convoy is mostly good news, although the government goons are targeting them with violence and threats and bank freezes and things like that. But let's get into some of the bad news, and of course the bad news, and it's not really surprising, but you got to know about it. That is, even now the government gang themselves are admitting that their inflation has hit at least 7.5%. And that, by the way, according to the mainstream media articles on this, is the highest level in 40 years. The last time it was the government number was at this number was back in 1982, 4 decades ago.
And there's a really effective meme about this, and I say effective because it just keeps growing, where there's... Man, I forget exactly what is on the meme now, but it says something about like, oh yeah, when you get a paycheck increase of 3%, but inflation is at, and it started off like 3.5%. Now they just take that meme, put a little scratch through it, and put 4%, scratch through it. Now I saw the one for 7.5%.
Yeah, and when's
today.
your next pay raise going to be? Not tomorrow, probably. Not next month.
Yeah, 6 months to a year.
Yeah, and it is probably not going to be 3% then either. And remember, this is the official government CPI, Consumer Price Index, which we know they don't include everything in on purpose. So we
they
know
don't include the price of food.
Is that right? Food's not in that
or
one?
maybe not,
They
not
don't
a lot
include
of
food.
I think they do include food.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. It says here that it does.
All food, or is it like picky? Because I know we've talked about this before and looked into it on the show.
Yeah, offhand I don't recall, but there are some things that are not factored in there. I think real estate is one of them.
Yeah, housing is something they don't include.
Wow, that's not necessary. We don't need to include that.
So that's why I'm saying, like, what's the actual level of inflation? Good question. Some people say they printed in 2020 and 2021 as much as 25 to 40% of the total number of dollars in circulation. It just depends on who you hear reporting on it. But whatever it is, it was a lot and continues to be. They could keep printing. They just hit $30 trillion debt just, earlier this week, I think it was?
30 trillion, right?
30 trillion, and it was 29 trillion, I believe, hit 29 trillion in December. So it's up another trillion in, 2 months.
That's insane.
Trillion here, trillion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money.
So according to The Guardian...
What is that?
It's just a joke.
It's a song? Or
I don't know what it is.
No, it's a
people
quote.
Say.
I can't remember who said it first, but I think he was talking in billions, not trillions.
Right.
But you're not talking sound money.
You're definitely not talking sound money. Inflation in the U.S. climbed to its highest level in 40 years in January. Prices rising 7.5% from a year ago. Well, what is it from 2 years ago? Just curious. They always talk about how much it was from a year ago. But, this whole COVID thing's been 2 years now. So what would it be if we looked at it from 2020, I wonder? Anyway, the rise...
I'd like to know.
Yeah, in the Consumer Price Index survey, which measures the cost of a variety of goods, was the largest since February of 1982. The CPI rose 0.6% just from December, higher than expected, but still down, they claim, from October, when inflation rose 0.9% on a monthly basis. That's not down. Just for people, for people that have a tough time understanding basic math, going up month over month is not going down. What they're saying is down is the number of percentage that it has gone up from month to month.
So the increment is down,
Right.
but it's only going up.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so sneaky.
Inflation in America has been driven higher, they claim, by soaring demand and a lack of supply. No, that is not what inflation is. Inflation is the increase in the money supply. That's it, and that's all. Prices go up for different reasons. Supply and demand is a factor in prices, but so is the money supply. In fact, it's a big factor. When you print trillions of dollars and you put them out into the economy, which is what they've been doing, and what they did before COVID, mind you, but they've done it in overdrive in recent years. When you print trillions of dollars, that means economically you have more dollars chasing around, in theory, the same amount of goods. Now, if the amount of goods is actually going down, then that means the prices will go up even more. Like if the supply chain issues are real, and they certainly seem to be real, with over 100 cargo ships sitting in the ocean, the Pacific Ocean, off the ports of Los Angeles, then you've got some serious supply chain issues. You don't have enough truck drivers on a good day to pick up those cargo loads. So, there's definitely some supply issues, but all of that's been created by the state and the lockdowns and the restrictions and the mandates. And these truckers are just saying, you know what? Before these protests even happened, a lot of the truck drivers said, I'm just going to retire. Why? I'm not going to get a vaccine.
Or get a job that doesn't make you or whatever.
Or there's also California, which specifies that certain trucks can't even come into the state.
What do you mean?
There's some sort of a state law that says if you have an older truck, you aren't qualified to drive in California.
They have all kinds of reasons you can't come into California. I remember when I went there with my family when I was in high school to go visit my grandma. We drove there from Utah. They stopped us at the border and asked, do you have this aboard? Do you have this aboard?
Asking about plants,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, some type of vines
Fruits.
and ferns or something like that, and different fruits. Yeah,
Yep.
so I
That's
mean,
a California
that was so
thing.
weird.
I don't think that exists in most other states. I think it's really pretty much California that
We
does
were just
that.
nope, we're not. We don't have any ferns on board.
Did they search you?
No, they just asked. But
They can.
The thing I hated about California was every single building has this big sign on it that says there are chemicals in use in this building that are known to the state of California to be
Cause
carcinogens.
cancer.
Ian was just saying that the other day to our friend who's going there.
Yeah. I said keep an eye out because you're going to see these things everywhere.
No, he said because everything in California can give you cancer. So
Right.
she was like, what?
Yeah, the only safe option apparently is to leave California because everything in California gives you cancer.
Yeah, and it's not just on the buildings, it's on like every product that they sell. There's a warning about cancer. I mean, it's everywhere.
My friend brought me cigarettes from France when she went to Germany and back because she was from there, and we both smoked cigarettes at the time. And they had a picture of a dying lady on them, and they said, this will happen to you if you continue to smoke this product.
They have those in Canada, too, where you get like a pack of cigarettes and it's got a picture of a black lung.
Or like they have babies apparently on some of them. Like, it's really graphic and terrifying.
Yep. Yeah, they actually, when I went to Canada, the one time I've actually been to Canada, back before I got arrested for civil disobedience, I was actually allowed in to Canada at that time, and we went to a convenience store, and in Canada, you have to pick your cigarettes from like a 3-ring binder because they don't actually have them on display. So you say, I want to buy a pack of cigarettes. Dude gets out a presuming you don't know what their selection is because you can't see them, right? So he gets out the 3-ring binder and you go, okay, I want this, Marlboro Reds or whatever. And then they have to go in to wherever they keep these things, pull them out from behind the the shelf that you can't see behind.
Man, I'm trying to think, like, if a law like that passed in our state, we would have to do so much crap to our store. Sorry, at the Mighty Moose Mart on Route 101
in Keene.
That's
Free
just
state
like
around.
so rude to make business owners have to do. I mean, I guess it would be doable, just like spray paint our things black or something, but
yeah, it's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
And the other thing was they had beer and I think was it beer wine stores. You couldn't get beer at a convenience store. You had to go to the state. Like here in New Hampshire, we have state liquor stores, and that's bad. But you can at least go to a grocery store or a convenience store, and you can still get a can of beer or a box of wine or whatever, right? But you can't do that, at least in Toronto. I don't know about the other provinces.
But you can
Maybe
get
it's different.
glass roses and shore boys.
The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160, and you can take control of the airwaves here. We got more about the inflation situation. Plus, the federal government is going to make inflation even easier if they go forward with their plans to release their own digital money. It's coming up.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you know the difference between erudite and pedantic? If you do, you're probably pedantic. But seriously, a surprising number of erudite people mispronounce erudite, which has 3 syllables, not 4. Say erudite, not erudite. Because you are judged by how you speak, you want to avoid common misstatements, especially if you're a job seeker. For instance, do you know the difference between imply and infer? Only a speaker can imply. Only a listener can infer. And when you say you'll be out of pocket, do you mean out of touch? Out of pocket means you're on your own dime, not yet reimbursed. And if anyone ever asks, why do you always answer a question with a question? You should reply, do I do that? Just kidding. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open. If you want to join us, you can do that. Number 603-283-6160. I want to say thanks to a couple of our Free Talk Live amps. Craig Thomas and Elliot Axelman, thank you guys. They're both silver level amps. Amps is our new Patreon program that allows you to contribute as little as $5 a month, which is what both Craig and Elliot are doing. So thank you. Definitely appreciate the support. And you can join us over at amps.freetalklive.com. It's Ian, Bonnie, and nobody in the studio tonight, by the way. ampsamps.freetalklive.com. You get some cool perks for doing that, so definitely appreciate everybody who helps us out. Yeah, perks. Perquisites, nobody. Perquisites.
Perquisites.
Not Percocets.
No.
I didn't know perquisites was the full word. I just thought it was perks.
Yeah, I didn't know that until a few years ago.
Wow.
It's a cool word.
I've never heard that.
So we're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts, and let's start out with Mark. He's listening in West Virginia. Mark, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, the truckers situation, and they were saying they, going to be at the Super Bowl. So I was just wondering if any of the football players were going to take a knee, for the truckers.
That would be pretty awesome if they did.
Yeah. But you know what they say? They said, it's cool. You can protest, get your trucks out, fine. But if you infringe on anybody else, we're going to, arrest you, throw away the key.
Who said that? The American government?
Yeah, but it's like you guys can't do it. That's our job. We got to shut your businesses down. You got to wear this and you got to take this. That's our job. That's not your job to shut down some other places.
Yeah, that's what they've basically been saying in Canada this whole time since the convoy started.
Yeah. So I thought it was pretty hilarious. Oh yeah, they had a security threat, that there would be truckers at the game,
Right. Get out Homeland Security. Call in the
state of emergency.
Right. Call in the reinforcements. We got truckers showing up, and they're gonna, hang around.
I hope that the tow trucks in America / the military in America will refuse to, go after any trucker convoys that might happen here, because that's what they're doing in Canada, and I would hate to see Canada look more freedom-oriented than America.
It's hard for me to believe that the American military would refuse to follow orders to arrest these truckers or whatever. But
I've never heard of that ever happening. I mentioned that on a show recently. I was like, I don't remember a time where the military ever told the government, yeah, we're not going to go after those guys.
Well, that's the
their
thing.
First
They're
Amendment
not
right.
supposed to use the military for policing. There's a thing in the United States, and I don't know if maybe Canada doesn't have it. The military is prohibited by, and now the words are escaping me.
Posse comitatus.
Posse comitatus. That, I mean, if they violate it, what are they going to do? Arrest themselves? So I think that at some point you'll probably see them violate posse comitatus, but generally they have avoided using the U.S. military. However, they will use the National Guard in policing action. So if you remember when the Biden inauguration happened, they brought in thousands of National Guard troops to occupy the streets of Washington, D.C. because they expected that there was going to be, a repeat of January 6th or whatever.
They're using National Guard's members for substitute teachers now.
Right, or working in hospitals in some states or whatever. Mark, anything else you want to share about your thoughts with the trucker convoy?
Well, the thing, too, that was coming up, you said about the Jan 6 thing. So we knew we got the picture of the guy that supposedly, put the pipe bombs at the DNC, right? Okay. They also got a picture of him on his cell phone. That's the most secure place in the world. Okay. The FBI says, oh, well, we can't find this guy. Everybody's trying to, all these hours going into everybody involved, but we can't find the dude.
So I'm not familiar with this story. Who was the guy with the pipe bombs?
Okay, they got a picture of the guy, that supposedly placed pipe bombs at the DNC on January 5th or 6th. So
I hadn't heard about that. Was that so? The DNC is that in DC?
Yeah, in DC there.
Okay.
Democratic National Committee or something. Okay. Convention.
Yeah. Why they're investigating this? Oh, they care less about this thing. But the problem is what I'm getting at is they got a picture of him with the cell phone.
Yeah.
So why can't you geo-track that cell phone?
That's because he was it's probably a federal agent talking to his federal handler, and that's why they quote unquote can't find him because he's one of them.
Wow. How come I haven't heard about this pipe bomb? I just Googled it.
None of the national media wants to talk about it.
Why?
They want to get everybody involved, but they don't want to talk about the most serious thing. Here's a pipe bomb,
Yeah,
there's fingerprints on the bomb. Yeah,
right.
We don't know who it is, right?
There must be something fishy. You're so right, because if some random Republican male from, rural Virginia went and tried to bomb the DNC, it would be all over the news every day.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it's amazing the things they ignore.
Cell phone at the event, but then they can't find this guy, with a cell phone. And it's he's a professional, probably, right? Okay, well, if he's so professional, why didn't it go off?
Yeah.
Great point. It works out perfectly. The Secret Service, who's guarding the vice president to be, right? She was over there, and they're the one that found it, but the FBI has to investigate it, not the Secret Service.
When I just Googled DNC pipe bomb, the main things that popped up were Kamala Harris drove within yards of the pipe bomb. Oh my goodness. Why isn't that on the news every day? It's weird.
Thank you, Mark, for the call tonight. I appreciate the thoughts. Thank you. The number here is 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. Given how many FBI plots there have been that have been revealed to us as FBI plots, the Gretchen Whitmer thing that you mentioned earlier, Nobody, where they were going to abduct her. Guess who was behind that?
24 FBI agents?
I don't know how many, but there were a lot of them. And then, of course, almost all of the quote-unquote terror strikes that were intervened in the last 2 decades in the United States were set up, created from, the letter A from the word go, by the FBI. They found a patsy, they found a dupe, some sucker that wasn't part of the FBI who was easily manipulated, and the FBI gave him the bomb, the fake bomb or whatever. They gave him the van. They gave him some money. They gave him a hotel room if he needed a hotel room. They give him everything. They encouraged him to do it. They radicalized him.
Like which one? Can you name an example of which bombing
one
they did that? Even
except for the
Boston
marathon. Except for the because they didn't catch that one, right? That one actually happened.
It's the ones they catch.
The ones they catch.
Are all the ones they started.
Look, we saved you from this bombing we almost orchestrated.
Yeah, that's right.
FBI foils FBI terror plot.
Every time. Every time. I remember it was like 5 or 6 years ago, the news story was that this had happened over 200 times up until that point.
Yeah.
In 15 years. So now it's been 20 years. So you can better believe it's been another 100 times. You don't always hear about it. It doesn't always make national news. But every time you see terror plot, for terrorist suspect arrested, all this stuff, you start digging into the story, you pull up the indictment, actually read the indictment. They start talking about undercover agents. They start talking about, oh, well, we were going to provide the bombs. We were going to provide everything from top to bottom.
Why do people keep funding these people and acting like this
Because
is some kind of necessary thing?
If you don't fund the federal government, they put you in prison.
It's true.
Why else do people pay
They can't put
taxes?
us all in prison.
That's true. But who's going to go first? Most people aren't willing to take a risk. They understand. They disagree that these things are. They think these things are evil. They disagree with them, but they don't want to fight evil because, well, evil's got cages.
Dangerous.
Yeah, they've got cages and sadists.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org. Get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Some of the world's biggest car makers say production is being disrupted by trucker protests in Canada. Drivers are blocking 2 points along the U.S. border in protest against vaccine mandates and COVID-19 restrictions, preventing auto parts from being delivered to factories. FSN's North America correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
The most significant disruption is being caused by the closure of the Ambassador Bridge, which connects Ontario to the US state of Michigan. It carries about a quarter of US-Canada trade. Toyota, Ford, Chrysler and General Motors have all been forced to halt or curtail production. The disruption is estimated to be costing $300 million a day. The shutdowns come as a further blow to the car industry, which was already struggling with a global shortage of semiconductor chips due to the economic effects of the pandemic.
U.S. markets closed lower Thursday after a key indicator of inflation showed a faster than expected rise in prices. But shares were helped by a series of positive earnings reports. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The Dow lost more than 500 points as a sell-off accelerated towards the close of the US markets, ending the day down 1.5%. The S&P lost 1.8%, while the Nasdaq fell 2.1%. It comes after consumer price index data showed a year-on-year increase of 7.5%, the biggest gain since 1982. There's now increasing speculation the report may prompt the Federal Reserve to take even more aggressive action to curb rising inflation. Tech stocks fared poorly, with Adobe down 3.6% and Apple losing 1.7%. But Disney's share price rose nearly 4% after reporting 11.8 million new subscribers signed up to its Disney Plus streaming service in the fourth quarter. And better than expected earnings for Mattel saw the toy maker gain 8.3%.
The head of London's Metropolitan Police, Cressida Dick, says that she had no option but to resign after losing the confidence and support of the city's mayor, Sadiq Khan. Her decision came just hours after she told a radio interviewer that she had no intention of yielding to her critics. But she says once the mayor had rejected as inadequate her proposals to reform the police after revelations of racism, bullying, and misogyny within the force, she had to go.
Following contact with the Mayor of London today, it is quite clear that the Mayor no longer has sufficient confidence in my leadership of the Metropolitan Police Service for me to continue as Commissioner. He has left me no choice but to step aside.
And Luc Montagnier, the man who co-discovered the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, has died at the age of 89. The Frenchman first began studying the mysterious virus in the early 1980s. Montagnier was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2008 for his work. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open. If you want to join us here, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We've been talking about inflation at what is in the last 40 years a record level. It has not been this high since February of 1982. At 7.5% January compared to prices just 1 year ago. And that is what the government gang is admitting. That's their highly manipulated consumer price index. What's the actual rate of inflation? Good question. We're going to go back to your calls and thoughts, though. You can take control of the airwaves. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. Let's go first to, let's see, we got Jeff calling from New Hampshire. Jeff calling out on the seacoast. What's on your mind tonight, Jeff?
Hey, Ian, thanks for having me on.
Sure.
Is nobody in the studio right tonight?
Nobody is in the studio tonight. He's back on the air on Free Talk Live.
Nobody's here.
I'm glad to hear that. Welcome back, nobody.
Thanks.
Hey, man, what county were you in real quick?
What?
What county?
What county jail? Weren't they holding you for a while in county? In New Hampshire?
I don't know.
Merrimack.
It was the one in Concord.
Yeah, it was Merrimack.
Okay, the reason for my call, Ian, was I don't know if you guys know a lot about the right to know law when it comes to getting information out of like cities or towns.
I do, yeah. I filed my share of right to know requests. In New Hampshire, they're called 91A because that's the code, the statute under which exists right to know.
Okay, I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
If somebody was employed by a local police department in the evidence locker, a civilian, not a police department employee, wouldn't you have the right to know the dates of employment for that individual under one of those forms?
Well, I can't give you legal advice, but I would say that there's the possibility. I know that some information about government employees is public. So, for instance, the amount of money that the employees are being paid in the various different positions, that information should be public. They can't give you, like, their home address, from what I understand. So there's certain quote-unquote privacy protections where they can refuse to give information. What were you going to say, Bonnie?
I always hear them, the prosecutor, if a cop is ever a witness, they always ask the cop, so how long have you been employed? Where are you employed? What date did you start with that police agency? Right. So maybe, I mean, if they won't just give it to you through 91A, maybe you can go find the transcript of somewhere they've testified against some drug dealer and find it.
Are you saying you've tried this and they've denied it? Is that why you're asking?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is this is a civilian working in an evidence locker. He's no longer there. So I wanted to know the dates of employment for this individual, and I got a letter back from the city attorney, basically saying they're not going to give it to me. And he cited an RSA, which I don't have in front of me, but it's more along discipline and test scores, and it doesn't say one thing about dates of employment in there.
Wow.
My guess is you can appeal that to a court, but I've never actually had to appeal. Well, no, there was one time where I did go to court on a right to know request when I requested the video footage of the man who set himself on fire outside of the courthouse here in Keene, New Hampshire.
Did you get it?
The city took me to court on that one. I think it's been so long; it's been a decade since that happened. I don't remember if it was me that filed the appeal or it must have been me. Anyway, they did not give it to me. They said, "Oh, well, it would upset the family too much, so therefore you can't have it."
Did they ask them?
Yes, there were some family members that were in the court, which, in my opinion, is a ridiculous, statement, and I should have had access to that footage.
Because you're a journalist, not because you're just some random freak.
I think anyone should have access to it. If it's something that happened in a government place and they've got footage, then anyone who wants to should have access. And anyone can be a journalist these days, including freaks, if that's what they want to do. But Jeff, that's what I would say. I would look into the 91A and see what sort of appealable functions there are. Maybe it's a simple appeal to the Supreme Court or the Superior Court and just try to take it up the line. Odds are good you won't have to pay a filing fee because it might be like a mandatory appeal, but I'm completely speculating, and that's what I would look into if I were you.
Okay, beautiful.
Good luck, man. Thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. Let's talk to Will. He is in Texas. Will, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian, Bonnie, and Nobody.
Well, first of all, welcome back, Nobody.
Thanks.
Free the crypto 6, you guys. Golly.
Thank you, Will. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope they do.
Okay. Yes. So I'm 46. I just turned 46 a couple days ago.
Happy birthday.
And thank you. So I caught COVID in July last year. I spent like 18 days in the hospital, if I remember right. And like 3 days in rehab, and the rehab really wasn't rehab, but that's what they called it. Anyway, I wasn't vaccinated. I was about to get vaccinated. I have since been sort of forced to get vaccinated, and I'm still not about it. My mother is 65, which she's not very old, but she's very not healthy. She's probably as healthy as an 88-year-old or something.
Okay.
She's probably not as healthy as the guy that works at the place, the Porcupine Freedom Fest or the Pork Fest. He's probably healthier than her.
The old man that runs
You
it.
talking about Crosby? Yeah, he's in good shape for an 86-year-old or however the hell old he is. He's really old. But what about your mom? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, okay. So she lived through and didn't have to go to the hospital or anything. Okay, and the one thing, I was 40. I was 45 at the time. I am overweight. I'm a little over 5'9", and I weigh about 40. So I'm definitely overweight. And so
you weigh about 40?
No, it cut out.
240.
240. Okay. I figured there was another number in front of it. I just didn't know which one.
Kilos or something.
All right, go ahead.
Missing some legs and arms for that. But anyway, my mom, she's got COPD, and I mean, I keep expecting her to die any day. She caught it and didn't go to the hospital.
Wow.
And then, with my coworker, one of his uncles.
Wait. You might have said this, but I might have missed it. Was your mom vaccinated when she caught it, or no?
No,
she was not.
She's not.
Okay, and she beat it.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't say it. So anyway, then my coworker, he's got an uncle or elderly uncle who's dying of, I don't know, cancer. He's in hospice care.
Okay.
He caught COVID, lived through it.
Wow. In hospice. For listeners that don't know, that's literally on your deathbed. You are in the process of going to die, and this guy survived COVID. Okay.
Yeah, and I just feel like this stuff is way overblown. Because I was listening to y'all's show from last night, I believe, and y'all talking about the COVID dating and all that nonsense. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you guys, not you, but the people who...
These scaredy cats,
It is
they're
so
just
overblown.
so pathetic.
My whole family got it, and they all felt like they had like a cold that was kind of bad for 2 days, and then my dad got pneumonia from it, like excess fluid in his lungs, but he was told by the doctors, yeah, but you're going to be fine and heal on your own and go home, and now he's totally fine.
Wow.
And they're in their 50s, my parents are in their 50s, and they're not vaccinated,
So was that the point of your call, Will, was just give us some examples of people who were pretty ill but still managed to catch and defeat COVID?
Yeah, and I'll give you a few there, and there's my best friend, his mom was like 73, and she caught it, and she did go to the hospital, but she lived through it. And these are heavy smokers, by the way, my mother and his mother. And one last thing I'll say is that, one of the reasons I went to the hospital is I felt I couldn't break a fever. I couldn't get rid of it, and I was feeling so terrible. The very next day, my first night in the hospital, the very next day I felt better, but my oxygen was really low. Mm-hmm. And I really wish that they would have just given me a damn oxygen tank and let me go home. I feel like that might have been, I almost wonder if they made it worse with the Remdesivir or whatever that crap is called.
Remdesivir? Oh, wow, I bet they did. I texted my dad when I found out that he was going to the hospital after they got COVID. I was like, do not take Remdesivir and do not let them put you on a ventilator. Even if they say that you have to, just say, no, I'd rather go home. And my mom texted me back, don't worry, Bonnie, we know Remdesivir is poisoning people.
All right, that's good.
So why are the doctors doing it?
The doctors are giving people Remdesivir, which is causing kidney failure. Oh, because the government is mandating that they use Remdesivir instead of ivermectin or the other one.
Will, thanks for the call tonight, man. I appreciate the stories. Thanks for sharing. The number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. We got enough time for you here in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live, which are coming up next. 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
The Supreme Court has ruled over and over again that government has no obligation to provide any services, even services as remedial as protection. They don't have any obligation to provide those services. So therefore, if there is no obligation on their part to provide any services, why should there be an obligation on our part to pay them?
Well, there isn't. It's only an obligation of they, implement this thing, and then you're afraid because they have guns.
People are scared.
But it's never going to end until we get over that fear.
Absolutely. I mean, we're essentially being terrorized by a group of gangsters calling themselves the U.S. federal government. The only difference between the federal government and a thug on the street is the size of the gang. It's time people start treating the IRS like the thugs they are.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, we have time for you. If you dial in right now, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And nobody. And phones open. As always, you can join us online, by the way, over at freetalklive.com, where we have our social media server. All you have to do to get interactive there is go to social.freetalklive.com Now, nobody. One of the prescriptions, or one of the bail conditions against you that was issued back in September, when they let you out after 6 months of sitting behind bars on victimless so-called crimes involving Bitcoin, which you and I are both facing as part of the Crypto 6. But one of the restrictions was you couldn't post to social media. Wasn't that right?
Yeah.
But now that you are able to do Free Talk Live related things, in theory, shouldn't you be able to post to social.freetalklive.com?
I don't know.
I suspect you can. Maybe you'd want to confer with your attorneys on that one.
I will confer.
But take a look over at social.freetalklive.com. You can certainly go there and see what other people are posting up, and you can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners there, and you have a lot more freedom to speak when you are at social.freetalklive.com. And that's because it is a Mastodon platform, which is an open source federated system that is self-hosted. Self-hosted means we run the server, not Twitter, not Facebook, not some big tech mega corporation, but Free Talk Live. So head over to social.freetalklive.com. There's apps for phones and operating systems, and you can just use your web browser if you want to as well. It's social.freetalklive.com. We go to Joe calling us from Maryland. Joe, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian, Bonnie, and Nobody.
Hey, Bonnie. Hi, Nobody. Hi, Ian.
Hey.
Hey, wanted to welcome you back, Nobody. You're our favorite on the air and stuff like that.
Thanks.
Aw, thanks, man.
Now, I got a question for you. You guys are really super smart. What trick did they get you on to cause you all this problem?
They arrested us for legal behavior.
Yeah.
For legal, just to clarify.
Legal behavior, yeah.
Trick. What was the trick law they got you on?
Well, they haven't gotten us yet, right? Like they got us as in they put our bodies. They got us as in they took us and removed us from our freedom and put our bodies into jail cells. They got us that way, but they haven't actually gotten a conviction yet because that trial is not set until November of this year. So,
okay, but what trick law are they trying to get you on?
For me, there's like half a dozen different charges.
Lord Almighty!
Yeah, including quote-unquote money laundering, operation of a money transmitter, conspiracy to operate, or an unlicensed money transmitter, conspiracy on that case. There's quote-unquote wire fraud. There's multiple counts of that. And then there's what they call the kingpin charge of quote-unquote continuing financial crimes enterprise. So I'm facing more charges than Nobody, but they held him for 6 months, and they held me for 2+ months, so 69 days for me.
Yeah, because they fear his brain. That's why.
Yeah, what are you facing, Nobody's wire fraud and money transmitter? Is that pretty much
conspiracy to operate a money transmitter, not actually operating one?
Oh, okay.
And wire fraud,
right?
Of which I'm accused of defrauding people of nothing.
Correct.
But what do you call it? You guys have been in jail before and stuff like that.
For civil disobedience, yes.
You walk close to the line. I can't believe how were these charges like this all of a sudden brought up, or were they made up? That's the part I'm trying to say.
Well, they're both. I mean, they're all made up because there's no actual victims in our case.
Right. That's
and
what
a crime
I'm saying.
is something that somebody does to another person that is
a victim.
Yeah.
Yeah,
as a victim.
And it seems like it's all of a sudden when somebody smashes in your front windows at 6 a.m, so it can seem quite sudden. However, they were working on this case for 5 years of investigations involving I don't know how many dozens of agents, how many thousands of pages of reports, monitoring us, our every move. I mean, the amount of money they must have spent on this investigation, it must be in the millions of dollars as far as, it's crazy. So there was a long workup going before they decided to actually raid our houses.
And basically, the only thing you guys did was start a bank account.
Well, I mean, there's a lot involved in helping people with Bitcoin, but there were some banks involved in this situation.
It's all public information, and I actually think that nobody's not allowed to talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about the case, but I'm pretty sure that has to do with what's actually happening.
But it's public
now.
and people can go look into it if you're really interested. I just don't think it's a good idea to just keep talking about it like the way that he's talking about it. I don't like the way he's asking these questions.
I see what you're saying, and Bonnie's being extra protective here.
Yeah, I'm just saying I'm saying you guys got ripped.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what governments do.
Yeah, we are advocates. We're advocates, and we still are advocates for Bitcoin on national radio. We're advocating cryptocurrency and freedom, and we're the largest and loudest voice on broadcast radio on those issues. And so, of course, they have to take us down. Of course, they have to target us. And
normally, when somebody is running a business in a way that the government doesn't like, they send them a correspondence. They don't break in their front window. Or bust down their door with a tank.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm praying for you guys every night ever since I found out about that bull crap.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the kind words, and thanks for the call tonight. So under the bail conditions, we're not supposed to discuss the case. But I don't think that means that we have to refuse to talk about the allegations the government's making. I mean, they have made public, as you say, these allegations. Anyone can download the indictment. It's out there. I don't know if it's on the Crypto 6 website, but it's certainly on the federal government's Pacer.
Which is a really weird rule. Like, why is it that the government can do all this stuff and then make a rule that you're not allowed to talk about it to people? Like, why is that?
I think what they mean by that is the reason why they don't let co-defendants communicate, supposedly, is because they don't want them to, I don't know, cook up whatever the defense might be that they would have.
Oh, no, the government is coming after people, and they might get together to decide their defense. Like, what's wrong with that? Honestly, I don't see what's actually wrong with that.
It doesn't make any sense to me because they get to cook up their prosecution together
for 5 years.
But I think that's what they're referring to, like... And the weird thing about it, Bonnie, is that we can talk to our attorneys, and the attorneys can talk to one another to cook up a defense. But we can't talk to each other directly about that. And that's the reason why they're prohibiting us from talking with Mark Edgington, who's Mark Edge, our co-host here on Free Talk Live, one of the founding co-hosts of the show. They won't let us talk to him because he may be called as a witness. And I think the idea there is, and the same thing's true of Melanie, one of our other previous co-hosts who's not on the air simply because we can't talk to her, because she may be called as a witness. Daryl Perry may be called as a witness. There's this whole list of people. Chris Reitman.
And imagine if they never called like Melanie as a witness. That'd be so sad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want them to at the same time,
but
because it's just don't want to inconvenience your life.
And I think the idea there is, you're not allowed to intimidate the witnesses, so we're not allowed to talk to them because we might threaten them or something.
Even though they've been watching us for 5 years and know that we don't advocate violence and never advocate violence, and why would we just start doing it against our own friends?
It's really ridiculous.
They're so crazy. They think that we booby trapped our own house.
They do believe those things. I mean, they're just that afraid. Let's go to David. He's in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, my question originally was going to be about conditions of bail that have conditions of release that have changed for nobody. Hey, nobody. But I want to change that because you discussed the father who set himself on fire because his children were illegally trafficked by the state of New Hampshire.
His name is Thomas Ball, and if people go to freekeen.com and search his name, they'll find what is, I think, as of the last time I checked, the #1 most viewed article on Freekeen in history.
Wow.
As it should be, and because you didn't, I wanted to make sure that it got out there. The reason he killed himself was a protest because he was unlawfully separated from his children by the tyrannical government that claims to rule over every aspect of your lives. That's why he killed himself, and he didn't just kill himself in private to kill himself. He killed himself in public to make a public statement, and that would have been my argument when the state refused to give you the video. I would have argued in return his intent was to disturb. His intent was to disturb you with his death in a fiery demolition.
His intent was to be seen.
Illegally separated.
His intent was absolutely to be seen, and I did make that argument. I did make that argument in court, if I recall. And again, it's just a tragic perfect situation. My only criticism of him is he should have done it inside the courthouse instead of outside. But thank you, David, for the call tonight. I appreciate it, and it is a sad, sad story. Check him out. His name was Thomas Ball, B-A-L-L. We'll see you tomorrow. freetalklive.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Some of the world's biggest car makers say production is being disrupted by trucker protests in Canada. Drivers are blocking 2 points along the U.S. border in protest against vaccine mandates and COVID-19 restrictions, preventing auto parts from being delivered to factories. FSN's North America correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
The most significant disruption is being caused by the closure of the Ambassador Bridge, which connects Ontario to the US state of Michigan. It carries about a quarter of US-Canada trade. Toyota, Ford, Chrysler and General Motors have all been forced to halt or curtail production. The disruption is estimated to be costing $300 million a day. The shutdowns come as a further blow to the car industry, which was already struggling with a global shortage of semiconductor chips due to the economic effects of the pandemic.
U.S. markets closed lower Thursday after a key indicator of inflation showed a faster than expected rise in prices. But shares were helped by a series of positive earnings reports. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
The Dow lost more than 500 points as a sell-off accelerated towards the close of the US markets, ending the day down 1.5%. The S&P lost 1.8%, while the Nasdaq fell 2.1%. It comes after consumer price index data showed a year-on-year increase of 7.5%, the biggest gain since 1982. There's now increasing speculation the report may prompt the Federal Reserve to take even more aggressive action to curb rising inflation. Tech stocks fared poorly, with Adobe down 3.6% and Apple losing 1.7%. But Disney's share price rose nearly 4% after reporting 11.8 million new subscribers signed up to its Disney Plus streaming service in the fourth quarter. And better than expected earnings for Mattel saw the toy maker gain 8.3%.
The head of London's Metropolitan Police, Cressida Dick, says that she had no option but to resign after losing the confidence and support of the city's mayor, Sadiq Khan. Her decision came just hours after she told a radio interviewer that she had no intention of yielding to her critics. But she says once the mayor had rejected as inadequate her proposals to reform the police after revelations of racism, bullying, and misogyny within the force, she had to go.
Following contact with the Mayor of London today, it is quite clear that the Mayor no longer has sufficient confidence in my leadership of the Metropolitan Police Service for me to continue as Commissioner. He has left me no choice but to step aside.
And Luc Montagnier, the man who co-discovered the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, has died at the age of 89. The Frenchman first began studying the mysterious virus in the early 1980s. Montagnier was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2008 for his work. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
It's the video sensation that's taking the internet by storm. A web series on YouTube passed the 100 views mark this week. Titled Andrew and John, the wildly popular webisodes feature roommates Andrew Vanier and John Haney playing fictionalized versions of themselves in unusual situations, mostly set in and around their Chicago apartment.
Dude, did you get my tart? What's a tart? Oh, you just texted me a fart.
Their latest short titled Laundry Day reached